Hmm.
If it's hasn't been recorded.
Can you hear us now?
See it on the mic there.
Yes,
Good. There we go. Success. Okay.
Thank you.
So Mayor, if you'd like, I'll go ahead and introduce the item. Yes, I just wanted to ask you, since we have no one for the public hearing, I don't have to open the public hearing. We have no one signed up virtually or in person, right? Or do I still need to open it and close it? No, there's no one here. We're marking no one is physically here or online to speak on this item. I suspect that some people may show up during first or second reading, either tonight or at the February 27th meeting. So I'll go ahead and read the ordinance title and then give a brief explanation before going into the details of this item. This is an ordinance of the City of Miami Springs, Florida, amending Chapter 150 Zoning Code, Article 2, Signs of the city's Code of Ordinances to address current case law requirements and to establish specific standards and regulations related to signs and renumber other sections. Providing for conflicts, providing for severability, providing for codification, and providing for an effective date. Mayor and council, good evening. This is an ordinance that is being heard by you in your capacity as the local planning agency. As you'll recall, we've done this a few times. When you're sitting as the local planning agency, you are making a recommendation to yourselves as the council. You're just wearing a different hat during this segment of the meeting. So at the end of this, we'll be asking for a motion to recommend approval of the ordinance, approval with recommendations, or rejection of the ordinance, whatever you decide after you've had an opportunity to contemplate the ordinance. As you'll recall, we embarked on this journey almost 2 years ago. We had budgeted to do the sign code amendments during your last fiscal year. And if you recall, I gave you an update that when we started working on it, I learned rather, through my partner, Susan Trevarthen, who's joining us remotely this evening, that the U.S. Supreme Court was taking up a sign code case last summer, which would contribute to our sign code and sign codes across the country. So rather than starting a process, adopting code changes that could be further influenced positively or negatively by the Supreme Court's decision, we held off and we started work after they came out with their decision, which Susan can explain further if you'd like, but it was really to our benefit that we did that, because lawyers across the country and cities and other interested parties throughout the country really got a lot of clarification based on that decision. So we started the revisions. We worked with your staff, with Chris Hyde, our former code enforcement director as well, he's now with another city, but they both provided us, as well as the city manager, they provided us with feedback of things that were concerns, challenges that they were experiencing on the city side, frequently asked questions that they were getting from residents, property owners, businesses, things that we could further clarify. And so we took that, and then we made revisions based on that. And then we also made revisions to bring the code up to legal standards of today. There have been a series of sign code cases throughout the last, there was a significant one in 2015, which really uprooted or changed sign law and First Amendment law across the country. And then the case last summer really affected us as well. So this code, the lovely 60
almost 60-page document that you have printed in front of you is intended to bring this code up to legal standards. It's supposed to organize the code in a fashion that's easier to read and easier to administer. So that'll be helpful to not just the administration side, but also to property owners who are trying to figure out what type of sign can I use or install. Susan will go into more detail about these code changes. But what I do want to assure you and the public is this is the first hearing that we're having. Our first reading will be during your 7 o'clock meeting, and we'll have second reading at your next meeting, your next council meeting on February 27th. If we get feedback from you tonight, please feel free to give us your feedback. I know we've had briefings with you, all of you, on this sign code, but please feel free to ask us, questions. If there's concerns you have, please let us know. We will be publishing a frequently asked question sheet, which we should have ready for the second reading of the ordinance, so that members of your community can really understand in an easier to read fashion, as opposed to a 60-page document, what they can and cannot do. So we'll have that guide available, and then that will become part of the Planning and Zoning Department's materials. It'll go on your website, and we'll just try to make it easier for everyone. So with that, I'd like to introduce my very esteemed colleague and partner, Susan Trevarthen. Susan is an expert on First Amendment law. She has done sign codes across the country. She has litigated sign code cases. She has litigated First Amendment cases at all levels of the law, from trial courts up through the Supreme Court. She has served as amicus curiae on all sorts of cases, and she is an incredible resource. I'm super happy that we have her working on this. And I also have to give credit to her, as well as our other colleague, Shanae Wood, who's not with us tonight, but had a huge part in working on this. So I want to thank both of them for their work. With that, Susan.
Thank you for that introduction, Heidi. Should I proceed, Madam Mayor?
You
Yes.
may, yes. Thank
Welcome,
you.
Susan. Thank you for
I
being
thought
here.
I heard another
I
voice.
should add,
I apologize.
Susan is also, in addition to being a First Amendment expert, she is also a fabulous city attorney. She serves as the city attorney to Lauderdale by the Sea, as well as the city of the village of Bal Harbour.
Thank you. So I know it's daunting. It looks like a very long ordinance, and I would just share with the council, as well as with the community, that the real guts of what you're concerned with fall between pages 12 and 38. Before that are some admittedly lengthy legislative findings, which the cases have indicated it's helpful and appropriate for us to include in the ordinance, and they help to sustain its validity in the event it's ever challenged. And after page 38, you'll see that we've set out in full the deletion of your current sign code as is required by the processes governing ordinance adoption and revocation. So the real meat to focus on falls in that narrower range. It's still a heavy lift, but it helps perhaps to see where the most important parts are. So I know that this chart has been prepared and shared with you, so I thought the most useful thing would be to walk through that, but just the first few framing remarks to build on what Heidi has said. Basically, the development of the law in this area has limited the options available to local government. And so, whereas many local governments in the past have sought to treat different sign types in a way differently that they can now under the law, our options are now constrained. And the most important issues turn on whether the regulation is tied to the content of the sign or not. So you'll see throughout the revisions to the sign code, some streamlining, some consolidation, but also some revisions so that we're regulating at a more generic level and a level that's less targeted to a particular message or kind of speech. That's one major theme that flows through the case law and therefore through your rewrite of the sign code. The other thing that I think is very worthy of note is a great simplification of the permanent sign standards that your staff has proposed, where previously there were standards that varied based on zoning district, but in the intervening years, some of those zoning districts that no longer exist within the city. So there's a collapsing of all of those standards down into either non-commercial or non-residential zoning districts or not. So definitely a simplification. So turning to the chart, you'll see the first thing we have listed, one of the questions we had received was regarding flags. And at line 1097, you'll see the proposed regulations of flags, which generally track what we've seen other cities be interested in and are concerned with, and are generally tracking the principles that govern, for example, the handling of the US flag. But certainly the regulations are not limited to that, because we can't pick and choose between the US flag or other kinds of flags. So those provisions are at 1097. And just give you a moment if you're trying to follow along. The second topic we'll highlight is temporary signs, which is an important area for all communities. And at 797 is where you'll see the changes begin that affect temporary signs. And we've offered a couple of options for you here. The initial standards around 800 are materials, it's not a hazard, where is it placed? And then we get down to the individual types of temporary signs, and you'll see at 822 temporary non-commercial signs. So to take a moment and explain what that means, currently your code regulates election-oriented speech, campaign signs or issue signs, differently from other kinds of temporary non-commercial speech. So when this code uses the phrase temporary non-commercial sign, it encompasses within it not just election-oriented speech, not just political speech, but all kinds of non-commercial speech. That is anything that does not propose a commercial transaction. So these standards would apply to that wider range of temporary non-commercial speech. And the first category is an allotment of signage year-round, followed by the possibility of allowing additional temporary non-commercial signage in the 90 days before an election. It's important to note that that is not just for political speech. That's for all non-commercial speech. So year-round, you have a certain limitation. In those 90 days before an election, there's a proposal to have a greater provision for speech. Then we move at 842 and 856 into the real estate related signs. And the first one is the main real estate sign, and the second one is additional signage at the time of sale or lease. And I just note on your chart, I think we dropped a row here, but the main real estate sign is 3 square feet. And then that additional sign when the property is open is the 216 square inches. And then we also have a cap on the total amount of temporary signage at any one time, a provision for additional temporary non-commercial speech during the winter months, and then some regulations for construction fence banner signs. And then the one specific kind of business sign is a building banner sign for a commercial special event. So that's the world of temporary signs as it is proposed for the LPA's consideration this evening and recommendation to the council. And then the permanent sign standards begin with the wall signs and move into the, let me just flip my page here. There's also provisions for permanent directional signs and freestanding signs, and those have varying sizes and placements, but generally those are going to be more seen in your non-residential districts and more likely to be communicating either commercial messages or sometimes messages for identification and wayfinding around commercial properties. We also have provision for the preservation of legal nonconformities. That section of the code begins around line 667. And we have an updated list of prohibited signs The other correction I would note here is that banners is no longer prohibited because we do provide for that commercial banner for business openings. And then that completes the items that have been highlighted in the chart. So with that, I know we have 10 minutes before the main meeting begins. I'll stop and see what kind of questions or comments we have from the council, and I thank you for your time.
Thank you, Susan. Any questions?
Through the chair,
Yes, ma'am.
I want to know, I mean, I'm sure it's probably in here somewhere. It's a very comprehensive sign ordinance. Anything on profanity or vulgarity?
Susan, I don't know if you were able
So-
to hear the question.
Yes, I was. Thank you. Councilwoman, I heard the question, and there is not any language in here that attempts to regulate obscenity. There is a state statute that applies to obscene speech, and I strongly recommend, as I have to all my other clients for a while now, that a local government not get in the business of trying to define or enforce its own version of obscenity. There's a perfectly good state statute, and if it need be, that can be cited. And then if there's a fight over how that's done and how that's defined, it's the state of Florida that is responsible for that definition, not the local government. So I think I've only seen difficulties arise when local governments try to take that on as a subject of local regulation. So I would advise against it.
Any other questions? I actually have a lot of questions, and
Good.
so I'm not sure that we can go through them in the 10 minutes we have left. Let's just plan ahead of time. I know we have to start our regular meeting at 7, but this is going to be on the agenda.
We can go through
Or-
them. If you want to start the regular council meeting at 7, that's fine. We can go through as much as we can now. If not, the regular council meeting is noticed for 7 PM or as soon thereafter as it may be heard. So we can just start the meeting as soon as we're done with this meeting.
Okay, and Heidi,
But do we have to have a recommendation to move forward into the?
Yes.
So then, but then how do those discussion points get addressed?
They could be discussed during first reading.
So
during
it can
your
be-
7 o'clock regular meeting.
Okay,
So we can
So
discuss them
then-
now, or we can discuss them then.
so can I, but the recommendation has to be done now. So can I move to recommend approval of the ordinance subject to discussion in the council meeting?
You
Or-
can just, yeah, you can do that.
Okay.
Second.
okay, and Susan, you can stay
Yes,
through. We can try to move you up.
Yeah.
whatever you prefer, ma'am.
We have, I think that would be better, because if not, we're going to be cutting, and then,
That's
you
fine.
know, the residents that come here for the 7 o'clock meeting are going to be very confused as to what we're in the middle of.
Yeah.
That's
we-
fine.
So,
So we'll move it up on the other agenda. during
okay, I
order
have a
of
first and a
business.
second. Any discussion? Call the vote, please.
Vice Mayor Lowe,
Aye.
Councilman Best,
Aye.
Councilwoman Bravo,
Yes.
Councilman Behet,
Yes.
Mayor Mitchell.
Yes,
The motion carries.
okay.
That's. it
All
for
right,
LPA.
so we have, about, what, 7 minutes? No, 5 minutes before 7 o'clock. Everyone can take a little break, and then, oh, let me go ahead and,
Close.
close the LPA meeting, and then we'll start again with the city council meeting at 7 o'clock. Sure. Yes. and that'll be-
That microphone.
What's the other guy's name that usually comes here and does that meeting?
It's Hugo, but we'll tell the company.
Oh, yeah.
Why, what's going on?
Because one night I was gonna find out the number, the exact number for William. One night he told us like how many meetings he goes to.
Oh,
And I really told me like blew my mind. And
Yeah,
how many meetings does a typical Hugo go to?
a typical Hugo, there is no typical Hugo.
Okay.
But me and a fellow coworker have been hired to replace him. We've done, I think our grand total, we've done 3 in a night. Wow.
Worse.
That's an 1/8 inch that's supposed to plug into the laptop.
Council meetings.
Oh, yeah, right.
All right.
Time to
Time to get some.
That vaunted Philadelphia defense, we're gonna hold them to 10 points.
How are you? Great to see you. How are you doing?
Hey, Tom, Philadelphia had 0 sacks. But
Thank you.
after looking at those 2 quarterbacks, Tua is a long way off from one of those.
Yeah, like what you would plug into your phone as a headset or something. Normally it's usually plugged in and dangling off the step. So. I can't see it. Yeah, that would answer the question as to why it's coming through on speakers. When you see like, you don't start a program, but that's where we're at.
Yes, probably. It's funny. Yes. Yeah, it's Mikey's.
Hello? Hello? I'm good. I'm 3 minutes from starting the council meeting.
Wait.
How are you? Are you okay?
Okay,
And then.
okay.
How are you? Council meeting, do you have?
Everything.
Let's see.
You look great. You look good. Nice and good. Yeah, yeah. You're- you know what, Paul? I mean it from my heart. You really do look good. You know, I know people say that, but he does. You look really good. You're rested and um, I'm telling you, I can't. We were at Disney World this weekend with the grandkids and with 2 of the daughters and, you know, their families. And one of them had rented a house right outside of Disney, very close. It was really convenient because it was 20 minutes away, but you know, we had with all the kids and I'm in heaven. I don't care about anything. It's whatever they do is good. You know what I'm saying? It's like, just, oh my God, who would believe it? No, but it's a different, like, you're just in awe, right? It's like, there's nothing better to. And in a deeper, right, Paul? What is it? It's like, I used to hear that. My mom used to tell me that. She'd go, I don't know why, but I know it sounds strange, but it's like, I feel like I love my grandkids more than I love you. And I'd always go like, it's a deeper, like, or maybe it's that it's your child's child. You know, there's something there and I'll go and I'll say, this is Carly's child. This is Annie's. There's, it's like.
Oh, yeah.
I know. So everything going okay? We're on target for the.
But they don't pay me enough to bring it out of my gigs.
Really?
No, that was there.
Oh, because of Black History Month?
Yes, that could be good now. Staying live and then I start recording.
I feel like we need a whole new city hall.
Oh. You guys need to handle the audio, hire us to take care of that.
Ahead of time.
Recording.
Thank you, sir.
Whatever. Zillion names.
Right.
Mayor.
Yeah.
So did you get the text I sent you? Oh, yeah. Did you get them after?
Yeah, I turn it off when I. I had
Sorry.
have a habit of turning it off before a meeting starts and then putting it on. And then when I'm gonna talk, I like to turn it off.
Wow. Did that group show up at 2:30? Yeah.
Yes.
How'd it go?
Yes.
Yeah?
Actually, I turned off Maria's when I got here, just in case. You see how I got you?
Thank you.
And then that's why it was off.
We're a
because-
team.
Yeah.
Everyone up here is a
because-
team. Even
Bob's, and that's why I thought Bob's was off. but-
Good, how are you?
I know we do.
Okay.
Well, the UNC play tonight.
The court.
That's about. Should be a good game. They're ranked
Yeah.
15th now, the people.
Putt.
Seminole Indians.
We got one,
We always.
one basketball team that's doing okay this season, the Heater.
So anyway, what happened?
I know.
I just got free heat tickets today by giving blood. I got the better deal. I
Yeah.
got my blood. I got their tickets.
You just put the two phones together and it does everything for you.
Now, it can be retrieved. And that's what I'm working on to do.
Okay,
Awards to do. We're waiting for Erica.
William, I'm gonna get yours before I leave tonight.
Okay.
Definitely get yours. And I just work on it, to build it back up. Yeah. But I think my daughter says that there's a way to do it. So.
That's your city phone.
Oh, I've never had a city.
Oh,
He didn't want one.
I didn't want one.
wow.
I've never had a city. I've used, I do all my business on here. Oh, thanks to me because of the Hillary. Remember? Yeah. I said, you know what? I got nothing to hide.
It's a different game, just like in football, it's just. You know, with a like. Free passing record, like if you could just let receivers run free and you like they would destroy the quarterback. God, he would have.
We'll announce it and then we'll take.
Oh, yeah. These days. So much. Back then, it was a free for all.
No, and you can't, and they used to destroy people going on.
Call the roll, please.
Mayor Mitchell.
Here.
Vice Mayor Lowe.
Here.
Councilman Best.
Present.
Councilwoman Bravo.
Here.
Councilman Fahet.
Here.
There is a quorum present.
All right, thank you. Welcome everyone to the city council meeting for Monday, February 13th. It's nice to see everyone in the audience and those of you that are joining us virtually. We are going to start with the invocation by Councilman Bob Best.
Almighty God, give us the serenity to recognize the things we cannot change, the courage to change the things that we can, and the God-given wisdom to know the difference. Amen.
Amen. If the audience could please join us in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, before we get started with the agenda items, I wanted to ask if the council would agree. I'd like to move up item 12E, the presentation by Omar Luna, because I know he has to be somewhere. It'll be quick. And I'll move that to after open forum. And then also the item 11A, which is on our sign code. We'll move that after public forum.
Motion.
Motion's okay.
Yep.
All right, let's start with awards and presentations. And we have City Hall Lobby Artist of the Month. Is Joan here? I don't see her. Is anyone here from the Senior Center?
She was downstairs.
Are they downstairs? Okay. While we wait for them to come up, we have a proclamation presentation to the Miami Springs Procurement Department for Public Procurement Month. Sue's here.
Suzelle is not, she wants to move this to the meeting of the 27th, if we can.
Okay, no problem. Go ahead. The next item is the yard of the month, and I know the homeowner is not here, but I do want to mention that the yard of the month for February goes to Maria Gonzalez at 730 Swan Avenue. So we'll be sending her the certificate of appreciation. And I encourage everyone who has a chance this next month, when you're driving around, to stop by, drive by, don't stop. Drive by 730 Swan Avenue and you notice the beautiful yard, and we're very, very appreciative every month of of everyone who works so hard to maintain yards. They make it look easy, but we all know there's a lot of work behind those beautiful yards. So thank you again to Ms. Gonzalez for beautifying our city. Okay, the next agenda item is Fred Gonzalez from the Miami Springs Little League. It's going to speak to us about opening day. Hi, Fred.
Hi, Mayor, Council. I'm here to invite you all to our annual Little League Opening Day ceremony on this Saturday from 10 a.m. to noon at Prince Field. We will have our traditional parade of teams from the rec center to Prince Field, awards and recognitions for top volunteers, the annual Great Baseball Snack Food Race, which is a hit with the kids, our State of the League address, and I hope Bob Best's iconic play ball cheer to officially open the season. So really, I'm here to invite you all and to ask Councilman Best, please come on down one more time. So
See you at 10, Fred. See you at 10.
See you at 10.
10.
Thank you. That's all I have.
Thank you, Fred. And for thank you for all the work you do, you and all the other your team, your group of team, and the parents who make this a reality. But if someone hasn't been to Little League opening day, I really encourage you to go. It is what a sight to see all, and they have the uniforms. You know, every team has the uniform of a professional team. So the colors, it's really is iconic Miami Springs. So I really encourage residents and everyone on the council to be there for opening day.
Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Fred.
Thanks, Fred.
Okay, so our next agenda item is we'll have the president of the Miami Springs Area Chamber of Commerce. Is Raul here?
I don't think he's here yet.
Okay.
We can
well-
go on until he arrives.
Okay, and I see the seniors are here. We have Joan
Way to be here.
Cavalier. Oh, hey, come on up. We have, we want to just take a photo with you. Do you want to speak a little bit about the Artist of the Month exhibit this month? I know that there are watercolors by the seniors at the senior center. Yes,
Sure.
come on up. If you could tell us a little bit about the display, it's beautiful. And as always, thank you so much for beautifying our city hall. I'm going to go to the podium. Joan. Joan, do you want to go to the podium and explain a little bit about the watercolors? Tell us a little bit about.
Right behind you.
She's so cute. I'm feeling like an old lady now and you a little guidance. You know what, Clarita, you come, this is Clarita, this is Martin. And let me see who else is here. Monica, where are you, honey?
You can just leave it like this and stay there by itself.
Okay. These are just a few of the artists that come every Tuesday to watercolor class, which is a difficult thing to do watercolors. And we have been using tutorials with my phone and their phones. They give you guidance on how to go about it. And we did little turtles, little koi fish, you know, and now tomorrow we're going to really hit them with doing skies, which is harder. But I'm very proud of them. And they're using their brain. They're busy. We were happy. I make a mess. Sometimes I don't, but it doesn't matter. What matters is you're doing something. And I really encourage you all to come. You get lunch afterwards if you.
And because you encourage us.
Yeah, well, thank you. honey. You're doing great. You're all doing fantastic. We love Betty and we love
Angie.
Angie. I can't get that in my head. She's an angel, but I should remember Angie's an angel and Betty's great. And they all work there. And so God bless you all. And thank you for the beautiful facility. We are blessed. I can't say it enough. If you haven't been there, go and look it over. We have a fireplace. We have like a little living room area. We have singing. We have people doing dominoes. We have everything.
And on that vein, I would like to say,
Come on out.
on that note, I'd like to say that we have the best administrator or supervisor or whatever you want to call it. I don't know what her position is. Tammy Key, my goodness, she has improved everything. The quality of life, the food, the ambiance, everything. She's so detailed and so careful with everyone. I think she should be good. I maybe give her a raise because she's so good. She's so good. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Ladies, let's take a photo with the council.
Take a picture.
Yes.
Okay, photo.
Angie.
Photo,
We're a
everybody.
lot more, but
Angie and
not
Betty.
everybody's
You
here.
Why are you doing this? Let me tell you, they have to watch the seniors because we don't want to fall and we've had a situation. They're very careful with them. One, two, three. Thank you. I got my phone. Thank you.
Thank you, Joan. I want to thank Joan for her valuable and continual sharing of her talent, her expertise. She doesn't just teach at the senior center. She's given classes at the Women's Club. She's always available. I mean, she is a extremely talented professional artist, and she shares her time so much with this community, not just at the senior center, but I know at the Women's Club and so many other activities. So thank you, Joan, for your time, for, the work that they produce. And one other thing, I know we mentioned this before, but I wanted to mention it again, that you were asked when our state representative, Alex Rizzo, was visiting. He was so impressed with the work that they were doing at the senior center, at the art room, with Joan's students, that he asked for us to send several works up there to decorate his office in Tallahassee. So that in itself is just a wonderful thing, that we have a part of us decorating the Capitol at Tallahassee. So thank you so much. And thank you to all the seniors who do the work, and Betty, Angie, and Tammy. You make things happen. Okay, so let's move to open forum. And I have one person signed up to speak, Nestor. I'm sorry, I should have said your name, Nestor Suarez. I just know you by first name.
There are actually 3 Nestor Suarez's in Miami Springs.
The Nestor Suarez.
Good evening, City Council and Mayor. Nestor Suarez, 550 Renan Avenue. So I was surprised to read that a pressing matter afflicting the city manager was that MiamiSprings.com has on occasion published an article or event that has used the seal of the city of Miami Springs in a news story and or promoting an official Miami Springs council meeting. I was surprised to receive a cease and desist letter citing Florida statute 165.043 regarding the display and use of the municipal seal. Now, I was surprised that the city manager didn't realize the U.S. Constitution and the First Amendment supersedes Florida law. While I can't use the city seal to represent myself to be an official representative of the city of Miami Springs or use it in an official capacity, I am well within my First Amendment rights of free speech and free press to present a news story that includes the seal, and if I so choose, use the seal in a manner that may mock or criticize the city of Miami Springs. This is the same legal premise that allows websites like Google, Wikipedia, Glassdoor, Kittle, and many others that display and use the seal of the city of Miami Springs. In fact, the seal of the city of Miami Springs is rampantly available all across the internet. Now, I was surprised to find that MiamiSprings.com was selectively being persecuted by the city manager, while all these other websites freely display and use the seal of the city of Miami Springs, especially when it's a constitutionally protected form of speech. Now, I wouldn't be surprised the city manager was not aware that there was already a federal case settled on this matter. Back in 2014, the case of Rena versus the County of Union, New Jersey, Rena displayed and used the county seal in a television program. The county objected and sent a cease and desist letter. Ultimately, the U.S. District Judge, Kevin McNulty, ruled in favor of Rena and against the county. I am further surprised the city manager would have wasted legal time and tax dollars when all it would have taken is a friendly phone call to say, hey, Nestor, we'd prefer if you didn't use the official city seal. Well, we have over 250,000 images on MiamiSprings.com. One image isn't going to make or break us. Again, I am surprised by the city manager's adversarial posture and the appearance of retribution after several articles that were published on MiamiSprings.com that did not paint the city manager in a positive light. While I retain the rights granted by the First Amendment to use and display the seal of the city of Miami Springs in future news stories, I think you may be pleased to learn that images in question using the official city seal have been removed and or replaced with alternative images representing the city. As such, we formally ask the city manager to rescind the cease and desist letter. And furthermore, we ask the city manager not to engage in any further retribution and or selective persecution or bad publicity. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so we'll move to, we're going to go ahead and move up item 12E. Omar Luna, our recreation director, is going to provide an update on pickleball.
Mayor, Council, how you guys doing? So pickleball, we're going to have now 4 courts instead of 2, which was our initial plan. And I met briefly with Manny and Brad, who's Manny's partner now, and we discussed kind of like right now a tentative schedule of how we're going to use the courts. But that was under the impression of the 2 courts we initially planned for. Now that we have 4, we haven't been able to meet because they were on vacation and things like that. We're supposed to meet this week, but the game plan is to basically have the courts available to the public every morning, all day to about 4 o'clock. At 4 o'clock, the tennis program will take over the courts. Okay. And then on Fridays will be pickleball night. And then all day Saturday and Sunday, the courts will be available. We're trying to squeeze in another night, like Wednesday night, to give the pickleball players a more broader use of the court. But like I said, we haven't really discussed that yet too much. When it's open court, it's free. There are times that we will rent the court out, but this is something that's going to be evolving as we get used to how many people are actually going to use the courts, which a lot of phone calls that I'm getting, emails, text messages, people calling me. I think we're going to have a pretty good crowd. Maybe it might be a problem that's good to have. But we expect a really good crowd of people. Everybody's really excited, actually really excited. We went from 2 to 4. But yeah, we're looking forward to starting in about 3 weeks. And I will be playing myself, so it should be fun. You guys have any questions?
To the chair, where could I get my accessories for pickleball? Will
Oh,
it be there?
depends.
Do I-
Amazon has a lot of rackets. I think there's a couple of economical ones like at Target, but
Okay.
you can actually get a decent racket on Amazon for like 50, 60 bucks. That's what I got. So I could just start off, but there are some that are like $200-300. I'm not at that level yet. So
Nice.
we'll wait a little bit.
Councilman?
Uh, So you made some good progress with this, I'm hearing.
Yeah, it's the courts are getting done right now. It'll take about another week and a half. What seems to be catching is the momentum of people talking that we're going to have courts. So I'm getting a lot of phone calls, a lot of text messages, people asking me when are the courts going to be open, how much they're going to cost. So I'm giving them as much information as possible. Shannon did a great post on social media that actually helped generate a little bit of that momentum. So we're going to be posting something within the next week or so. Once we have a date that I can actually say, hey, we're going to open on this date and things like that. So we're looking forward to a big crowd.
You're right around the corner from starting this up then.
Yes, we're looking about probably first week in March.
Thanks for your hard work, Omar.
No problem.
Thank you, Omar. And I just wanted to state that, you know, and I think we've said this before up here, that some of the best ideas, some of the best opportunities that we have in the city, our residents brought them up to the council, you know, somewhere along the line, not necessarily this council, but in the past. And this is an example of, I know a resident reached out last year and, you know, asked about pickleball at the tennis courts. And I told them to go to the recreation board and bring it up to them. And it was discussed. And when we thought about it in the past, last year, I think our intent was we would like to build pickleball courts so that, because it's not, you know, we don't want to take away from tennis. You know, the players that are tennis shouldn't have to give up the ability to play tennis just because we had pickleball. Ideally, we should be able to do both. And one of the reasons that it's not available all the time is because there is tennis instructions going on for the children and, you know, tennis camps and all this. And we want to make sure we're not impacting that. But I think this is a great start. Like you said, I know there seems to be a lot of interest in this. And I think it's wonderful that we went from creating 2 courts, which is just painting the existing tennis courts. To explain it to people, it's not building new courts. It's you paint an existing tennis court and you can make 2 courts out of it. So by painting 2 tennis courts, we get 4 pickleball courts.
Correct. So the court 3 will have 2 pickleball courts, and then court 4 and 5 will have 1 on each court, and we'll use the tennis net to use the purpose of the net for pickleball. And then the other 2 will have portable nets.
Okay.
So that way we did that actually, which is what an idea that I had proposed to them. I was hoping they'd agree to it, and they did, was because, for example, the portable nets, you got to take them in and out. You got to move them. So we were going to eventually chain them to the fence on days that there's no one at the site. So I was like, can we at least use the other courts with the existing tennis net, which some places actually do that. So like, for example, on a Sunday morning, when we open up at 7 o'clock in the morning, there's not really staff there. They could play pickleball on those courts instead of us having to unlock the nets and move them and maybe someone taking them. Because we've heard of portable nets being stolen from other cities. So people have pickleball courts in their backyards now. So
wonderful. And we'll gauge it, and the recreation department will be gauging it. And hopefully, if it really, you know, there is that demand and all down the road, we can build pickleball courts at a separate location. I know we talked about at Stafford Park or at the country club, which would be great to expand upon the country club. You can have food and drinks there, and, you know, and play. And
I think I'll be
play
back
before
here in
and
a couple
after.
months asking for that.
Yes.
Could probably be a
Yes.
good
Well,
call.
I'm hoping we can squeeze that in if, you know, if the demand's really there, and
Right.
it does seem to, you know, and by all indications, it does right now with the interest. So thank you, Omar. Thank you. Thank
you.
Manny and Brad for making it happen. I know, you know, it's not easy to think about all the parts of it and make it work, but
Correct.
you're doing a great job.
Thank you. Appreciate the support, guys. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks so much.
Bye-bye. Thanks so much.
Okay, so now we'll move to item 11A that we moved up, which is the sign ordinance.
I'll go ahead and read the title, Mayor. Okay, this is an ordinance on first reading. It's an ordinance of the city of Miami Springs, Florida, amending chapter 150 zoning code, article 2, signs of the city's code of ordinances to address current case law requirements and to establish specific standards and regulations related to signs and renumber other sections, providing for conflicts, providing for severability, providing for codification, and providing for an effective date. Mayor and council, at your 6:30 local planning agency meeting, you moved to approve this ordinance as the LPA. So you made a recommendation to yourselves to approve it. We began discussion of the ordinance, but didn't complete that discussion, so we can pick up where we left off for the benefit of members of the public who are here, who were not in attendance at the 6:30 meeting. What we're talking about are updates to the city sign code. The sign code updates are intended to bring the code up to legal standards. Over the last decade, there have been a series of cases at the United States Supreme Court which have affected the validity of sign codes nationwide. And so one of the things that this ordinance intends to do is bring our city's sign code up to snuff, let's say. So that's one of the things, among other things, that also reorganizes the code in a fashion that will hopefully be easier to read and understand and administer. Second reading of the ordinance, which will be the adoption of the ordinance, is intended to be scheduled for Monday, February 27th. So based on the feedback that we received tonight, we may or may not have changes to the ordinance for that second reading. As I mentioned during our LPA meeting, when we bring the ordinance back for second reading, one of the things that we intend to do is have a frequently asked questions list that sort of summarizes this 60-page ordinance into something that's a little more easy for members of the general public to understand. And with that, I will reintroduce my partner and colleague, Susan Trevarthen, who is our First Amendment expert. She and our other colleague, Shanae Wood, have worked on this ordinance extensively over the last year. And I just also want to mention, we embarked on this, as I mentioned earlier, we embarked on this ordinance almost 2 years ago. We budgeted to make an amendment to the ordinance. And as I learned through our partner, Susan, the US Supreme Court was taking up a case last summer, which would affect sign codes once again. So rather than embarking on doing the ordinance changes at that time, and then having all of that work go potentially to waste based on the Supreme Court's decision, we decided, let's wait, let's see what the Supreme Court's decision results in, and then we'll make our changes. And that's what we've done. So that is why we did not complete this over the prior fiscal year, and it's being done this fiscal year. And I just wanted to address that because I know that there've been questions about that. So with that, Susan is joining us remotely on Zoom, and I'll let her go into, well, actually, Mayor, how do you want to do this? We addressed, Susan went over.
She went
some of
over
the high
items.
points.
Well, let me go ahead first and ask if anyone on the council, because I have a lot of questions. So is there anyone on the council that has any questions before I get started?
I certainly don't. In our interviews that we had with our legal people, I was satisfied with the changes that are made. So I'm
Through
fine
the
with it.
chair. I'd like to hear some of your questions because we may have some of the same. So I know you had some concerns.
Okay.
I would like to go over.
And part of this is,
you have.
I know we just got this at the end of last week and it's a lot to
Yeah.
digest. So, I'm not even sure if we want to pass it this one or we want to delay it till the next one, the first reading, after we review this, or maybe we can address everything tonight. One of the things, and maybe it's in here, but I don't see it, is murals. I don't see murals mentioned in here unless it is, and I just didn't see it. How does that differ? I know we did another ordinance prohibiting murals, but I know sometimes in our ordinances, it's in one ordinance says something and then the other one says something different, and it's kind of hard to
There's been no change to the mural ordinance. Murals remain prohibited.
okay, and murals will not be considered signs, cannot be considered signs, cannot be considered under this.
Non-commercial.
Susan, do you want to address that, how it's treated in this ordinance?
Yes, that we have through the mayor, thank you. We have a separate ordinance that defines and regulates murals, and it's intended to work that way. Yes.
Okay, should we mention in here that clarify that there is a separate ordinance that addresses murals so that there's no confusion later as to someone saying it's a sign, it's not a mural,
I'll be glad to look at that
or
for
it's a mural,
second
not a
reading.
sign.
I'm inclined to say no, to let them stand on their own as two separate laws for the city, but I'd be happy to take a look at that.
Okay. Thank you, Susan.
Sure.
Okay, hold on one second. On item, let's see, this is section, I guess, 710. That line at the very end where it says including updating the technology used in the sign. What does that mean, technology used in the sign?
So for
You're referring
example,
to line 710?
Line 712
Got it. Okay.
or 713, it's hard to see.
an obvious example of updating technology would be to take a sign that has no illumination and to turn it into an illuminated or digital sign. So generally, that's the concept that's being expressed here. This is a section that talks about nonconformities. And as you will no doubt recall from other parts of dealing with your zoning issues in your community, the general principle around nonconformities is you can stay, but you can't expand or intensify the use. So updating the technology is something that cities generally deem to be an intensification of the sign. And actually that was an issue in the Austin case last year. And it is permissible to hold those non-conforming signs to the current level of technology.
Okay, so Susan, do we need to explain what that is in technology in our code, for example, or something, or? I mean, is this a pretty standard when we say technology of a sign that?
We can certainly
pretty
look
clear?
at
I'm
whether.
just thinking ahead.
No, I appreciate that.
Because later on we get confusion of, what was the intent or, how that applies.
We can certainly look at whether we can add some words to make sure that people are not confused by that. And consult with your staff as well in terms of their views on how easy it'll be to administer that.
Okay. The next one is line 721. And I noticed we refer to a zoning and planning director. Is that a title we have?
I
Because
believe it
there's
was our
another section where
understanding. I apologize, Madam Mayor. Go ahead.
There's another
didn't mean
section
to
where we use another title. No problem. And who are we referring to there? I guess is who I'm asking. Is that Ulysses?
Would it be Chris?
Chris?
No, the zoning and planning director currently is Chris Hyde, our city planner. To the extent that there's a mistake, I would need to defer to Mr. Hyde and our city manager.
Chris, because I think there's another term
And my
here.
preference is the language of city manager or designee, so that doesn't leave it with me and me alone. It's the manager's decision. He can designate it to me or anyone else that he would like, but the decision belongs in the manager's hands, not mine.
Okay, so we should put there, how would we word that?
City manager or designee, that's
City manager or
standard language,
designee.
unless you're.
So Madam Mayor,
We can
that's
make
not a
revisions
problem.
between first and second reading.
Yes.
Through the chair.
Yes.
I rather leave, I mean, if they want to add city manager, but I rather leave also the zoning and planning director.
Well, through the chair, if we want to do that, then we're eliminating the possibility of the manager to designate someone else, for instance, in Chris's absence or something, and something needed to be addressed. Well, he's the manager, but
So,
the language that's being suggested is the manager or the designee. I think that's
Right, I
fine.
think
I don't
that's
think we need to
clear.
be specific here.
it allows that little flexibility. And there's somewhere else, I'm trying to find it, where we used another title, and I just want to make sure who we're talking about. in
So,
this. Give me
Madam
one
Mayor, we
second.
will search for other titles, and if that's the new input we're getting,
Oh.
which is it should be manager or designee, we'll make all the titles manager or designee.
Okay, and maybe zoning and building. Okay, I know what it is under line 1004. And this is probably just housekeeping, but I just want to make it clear. We call it
Sure.
zoning and building director. The other one, zoning and planning director. So should that one say also city manager or his designee?
We'll clean it up
Okay.
throughout the ordinance, Mayor.
Through the chair,
Yes.
I have a question. So if there's gonna be another designee, and ideally, who would that be? Would just be anybody? How?
In general, it's
Shouldn't
the
it-
person who makes these decisions ultimately is the city
City
planner. It is
manager.
a planning function.
Right,
A
but-
zoning function.
Right, but if he has the option to appoint somebody, I want to know what your preference would be.
Well,
Would
no,
it be
we're
a
talking-
zoning?
City manager or designee, designee is gonna be the city planner. If the
Right.
city
Okay.
planner is not available, then it comes to me.
Understood. Okay, that makes sense.
On item 745, and again, some of these things is that I went through them and have. I know, excuse me. Let's go to item 725, that paragraph 3,
Yes, ma'am.
non-conforming sign.
Mm-hmm.
Is there, I know it says, the sign may be replaced with valid building and sign permits, including lighting and electrical alterations. Can they put up the non-conforming sign again? Does that mean, I'm guess I'm asking here, if they have a non-conforming sign, they're removing it to update it, to renew it, they can, my understanding of this, and maybe I'm not understanding it correctly, but my understanding is that they can remove the non-conforming sign and replace it with a non-conforming sign, just newer, cleaner.
So
Is that,
Susan can speak to this, but what it is it's the face of the sign. So if all you're doing is swapping out text, for example, updating a phone number, that would be okay. You're just not increasing the size of the sign. You're not changing the pole that it might sit on or stand on. That's effectively what this allows you to do.
Through the chair.
Yes.
To confirm that on item 3, which is what we're discussing, it literally says here, shall not be enlarged, altered, or moved without the entire sign being brought into compliance. So they can't even alter it. So would that fall under maintenance?
Well, if it's non-compliant, I would think.
Right, but what was, I think. we
If
should-
it's non-compliant, if they make any changes, it has to
Right.
be brought to compliance.
Correct, so.
no, I don't think that's
was-
what this reads.
Hmm.
It says any sign face that does not increase the degree of nonconformity or on nonconforming signs may be replaced with a valid. Oh, okay, all right.
So, Madam Mayor, we can certainly.
Oh, okay,
work
so I
with-
guess what. And I can see, like, if somebody needs to update a phone number, or that we're allowing them to do that without saying you have to replace the entire sign.
Hmm.
But that,
Through the mayor?
is it possible then also that they say it's exactly the same sign and we're replacing it, we're just making a new sign, but it's the same size and it was non-conforming before, it's still non-conforming?
Yes, and if the language is not as clear as it could be, we can certainly work with your staff on this. I'm just scanning because I believe this is a concept we brought over from your current code. So we may not have changed it much at all, but I will take a look at that and bring you something for second reading. And just to clarify, is it the desire of the council only to make certain that it's clear? Or is it the desire of the council to make sure that we limit changes to non-conforming signs as much as possible so that we speed compliance with the new standards.
If I may.
Yes, sir.
I think that if the intent of this is to say that any non-conforming sign, if altered, has to be brought into conformity, then I think that should be a little bit clearer. If that's the intent of this, because it seems to have two different parts to it. One talking about signs that are non-conforming signs being altered. If they're altered, they have to be brought into conformity. And then it goes into any sign that any sign face that does not increase the degree of non-conformity or non-conforming signs may be replaced with a valid sign. I think that whole wording is kind of ambiguous, and it's I think it should be if the intent of this is any non-conforming sign that is altered has to be brought into conformity, that's what it should state.
But I do think we need to leave a little leeway there for the phone number has changed, you know, something so
But
as.
this is specifically for non-conforming signs. Why would you want a non-conforming sign to be, even a phone number to be changed and not brought into conformity? That I think that's the whole purpose of this clause, that non-conforming signs, if they need to be altered, they need to be brought into conformity. And I think that's pretty clear if that's what the intent is. And I don't think a non-conforming sign should be able to be altered without being brought into conformity.
Susan, is that the intent of that language?
So the reason I'm asking the question is this is an old section of your code, I believe. And so I want to make sure that what we do for second reading reflects the will of the current council. The only legal constraint that we face is that if someone purely wants to change the content, the effect of the change is it's not structural in any way, it's not intensifying or enlarging the sign, but it may be as simple as a number changing. Then that pure change of content, we do need to allow without requiring full compliance. But very, very frequently, someone will come in with a change of content that has other aspects to it. Maybe they're individual letters and the new name has twice as many letters in it. That means it's a structural change and it would have to comply. So I'm hearing from some of the discussion a desire to trigger that conformance as soon as we legally can, and I can reword it to make that clear for your second reading consideration.
Thank you. And I personally don't have a problem with, you know, if the phone number has changed, or say they say on the outside open 24 hours and now they're only open, you know, 7 to 11, to have something like that instead of, I would rather that than have old information on there. And, you know, when you visit the business, when visitors visit the business, they go, why does it say this? And they go, oh, because I'd have to pay to change the sign. So, you know, I want to make sure that we try to be as considerate of, you know, of not just the people who own the buildings, but also our visitors and, you know, our clientele who, you know, should have updated information. But that would be very basic changes of, and somehow maybe perhaps that could be worded as to, you know, the times open, if that happened to be in the sign, or the phone number or something like that. And anything else should be, you know, these are major things. You have to bring it up to compliance. So perhaps if you could give it, you know, just let us know how that might be made clearer, Susan, please.
I'd be happy to do that, Mayor.
Thank you. Okay, on item 7, line 745, I'm wondering if that last line, it says the provisions of this division regarding safety, maintenance, and repair, should we also include in there and removal of signs?
I'm not seeing a reason not to, so we'll definitely add that to the list, and if it's appropriate, bring it to you for second reading.
Okay, and then
But if it's removal, it's not maintenance, is it?
Right, but I'm saying not just maintenance, repair, and also this addresses removal.
Well,
But
because you're
item
talking about non-conforming
6 there is-
signs. I apologize. Go ahead.
I was just saying that item is titled non-conforming sign maintenance. I wonder if removal is beyond the scope of maintenance.
If it's beyond maintenance or repair, then it needs to be removed.
Through the chair, I would suggest in our thought process here that maintenance includes both installing and removal, because it's a maintenance function. I think that's perhaps why the header of the article is what it is.
Through the chair.
Yes.
I can see where 6 and 4 can play a part here where like, oh, we're just doing a small maintenance. Well, how much of maintenance is maintenance? Is it 20%, 30%? I mean, what are we talking about here in the scope? Because if they're going to maintain the whole sign, then they would have to come into compliance, correct? I don't know. I'm just trying to.
Susan, and I know some of these things seem nitpicking, but later when we have a situation, it's like the code's not clear and, we go around and around and spend a lot of staff time and the business owner is, upset. And so it'd be good if we could have very, clarification if we're redoing the sign code.
I don't know what maintenance would be.
So,
Is there a
Madam Mayor,
reason
this
not
whole,
to have in there removal?
if I may, Madam Mayor, I think that this whole section, we should work with your enforcement staff, who, after all, are the ones who are going to catch this. And I certainly agree with your impulse. Let's make sure that everyone understands and we're as clear as possible. And I also understand what you're saying, that at a certain point, maintenance will go too far and will have to lead to removal. So we'll list this as something for follow-up and fix for second reading.
Okay, thank you. And I'm not sure whether to bring it here or later, but I'll go ahead and mention it now. I think we passed an ordinance or adjusted an ordinance in the past where if a property goes out of business, closes, their sign, they have to remove their sign from the front within, 30 days, 60 days or something, because, it's like we have these properties that the business hasn't been there for ages, for years, and it still has a sign outside, and we don't need to advertise something that, is no longer there. Is that
I think
in
it's in
here?
I think it's in there.
Somewhere.
Of,
I saw that.
like within a certain period after the business closes, they need to remove their sign.
Yeah, I think there's a sunset provision. Maria, I read it somewhere in here.
Okay,
don't-
I just want to make sure.
Good point.
Susan, do you know if that's there? That, I know we had, like, I can think on Westwood Drive, a sign for like,
Yeah.
I don't know how many years, and the business didn't exist.
Right.
Or at
So
least
I
highlight-
recall that it's in here. I'm just having to find it. I apologize. So the definition of abandoned
If you
sign
just
is at
look for it.
513, and it has a 30-day time limit. And it's tied into the maintenance requirements as well.
Line 1087, Susan.
Okay, well, 513 is the
it is.
definition. And then we get down to 1087. That must be the
Slide up.
regulation.
30 days. Nope, it's in there.
Okay,
Great.
great. I want to make sure that's in there. On item, let's see, this is under F, public safety, line 783 and 784. Well, I'll just read the sentence. No sign or sign structure shall be placed in such a position or manner as to interfere with traffic safety. I'd like to include traffic or pedestrian safety.
That would be fine.
Here, what line was that? I'm sorry.
It's 784. Shall not interfere with traffic or pedestrian safety. Okay. Now we get to the part that I think with the temporary signs and no more than 4 square feet or 8 square feet. Oh, I'm sorry, I'm at, let's see,
You're looking at
819.
line 814 and line 825.
Yeah, well, and it goes all the way through, I guess 829.
Right, but 825 addresses the maximum square footage of signs you can have on a property, which is 8.
Mhm.
And then 814 tells you, so in other words, you don't want somebody taking an 8 square foot sign and putting it on the lawn.
Right.
So 814 limits you to 4 square feet. So in essence, you can have 2 signs, 4 square feet each, which a regular yard sign is about 2 by 2, so that's about 4 square feet. So having 8 square feet limits you to basically about 2 yard signs.
So this would be political signs also. Would fall
These are not,
under-
these are not
non-commercial.
Non-commercial.
Temporary, yeah.
So they do include political, but they include more.
Says, right, no, temporary, non-commercial. So this is what is it called when it's content based? These are we're referring to content based,
No, we're.
right? Or no?
That's why we're doing it as non-commercial speech.
I guess
When we were
let me-
referring it to political, it was commercial, content-based.
Okay.
Yeah.
Let me just explain my concern.
Sure.
And maybe, again, I'm not reading this well. If we're right now going into an election, okay, there's possibility of 5 candidates. So does that mean that if somebody wanted to have, there's 5 seats, 4 seats and mayor seat. If someone wanted to have political signs for 3, 4, or even all 5, that they can only have 2 in their yard?
Or
If
they
I
just have to
can-
be small enough to comply with the 8 square foot maximum, like in total.
Well, that means that whoever the candidate has to create other signs that, would be
Smaller to
small
comply.
enough to.
Yeah.
Madam Mayor?
Here, do you want a one? Two
Don't
is
support
fine.
so many people.
I think Susan has an answer.
Yes, sorry, Susan.
No problem. So Madam Mayor, your dialogue there was catching that this is not a limit on the number of messages. And so an individual sign could have multiple messages. But I do understand what you're saying is practically, it's probably going to be 2 pre-printed signs that would fit. Now, this is where I would point out also 833. Because that says that in the 90 days before an election, you get additional signage. So it's that 4 + 4 or 8 square feet year round. And then in that 90 days, you get an additional 4. And 2 by 2 is 4 square feet, just to try to visualize how much signage we're talking about. So
Okay,
there's
so-
nothing magic about that. And if you would like to increase those area sizes, you can do so. Nothing forces you to keep them at this level.
So through the chair, if somebody wanted to place on their property a sign indicating their choice for a member of council or mayor, might they put 5 signs in their yard?
If those signs each were no larger than 4 square feet and together totaled 8 square feet, any time of year they could do that.
Would be more-
And then, the time before an election, they could actually have a total of 12 square feet. So it's not number of signs. It's just, here's the size and you use it as you see fit. And so if the council believes that's too cramped, then we should increase these maximum sizes, a maximum
For
sign area
general
on the lot.
elections too.
Yeah, I think it would be wise, sorry, I think it would be wise to increase the limits in that 90-day period before elections. I think to myself, like gas station on the circle has like
Oh, yeah.
a bunch of people that they kind of support, right? I think that in that period before an election, we should be open to allowing people to maybe have a little bit more square footage to accommodate the number of people that they may want to support. Because those yard signs tend to be kind of standard in size.
If I may, just real quick, usually a standard sign is 2 foot by 2 foot.
Okay.
So what you're saying, in an 8 square feet, you can have 4 signs in 8 square feet, and you're allowing 4 more. So you're allowing for 6 signs total already.
Okay.
So I
Yeah,
just gotta look at, because it's a square footage thing. It's not
Right.
it's not a,
And
you
the
know, number of
political
signs
signs, I
thing.
can't tell off the top of my head. There's
Those-
2 by 2.
Those political signs are not square.
I think they're two.
I think it's a little, I think it's like 2 by 2.5 or something like.
Yeah, yeah.
But
It's
I
not,
get it.
it's
I
not 2
just-
by 2.
But I mean, that's the hard part, because we're thinking of a single sign, but you're allowing square footage, which is totally, you know.
Okay, so
that's a
how
lot.
many political, because I'm thinking general election too, where, you know, there's president, Senate seats, all these other seats, and some people, you know, really do want
A
to
lot of
say who they're supporting, and I don't want to say pick 2.
Yeah.
Through the chair.
I do want to clarify, and I know where the focus is on lines 831 and that's section 2A. But remember that we do need direction on the temporary non-commercial signs that are year round. So I think, to Vice Mayor Loeb's point, you know, if it may be best to break this down into a discussion of, are we okay with this policy decision of leaving year round, not related to an election, the total limit of 8 square feet on the lot? Is that something year round that the council is okay with as a policy choice?
I would say
And-
yes.
Which
it
would
says-
cover elections might occur in various months through the year, right? Which is what
I
was just
apologize,
suggested
Madam
here,
Mayor.
right?
But it also says a window
No,
sign
please,
too.
go
So
ahead.
it's 8 square feet in the lot plus 1 window sign. I just recalled that I didn't remind you of that. So 828 provides for the window sign.
Through the chair.
Also, if I may, that was,
Go ahead, Lo.
I made a mistake in my math.
I was
You're
going
you're
to
talking a total of 16 signs
Mhm.
in an 8 by 8,
Which is-
there were 2 by 2.
All-
Which is more
all year
than
round.
adequate.
More than
Yep,
adequate.
yep.
So I just want everybody to you know,
Okay, and I think let's talk with signs. How many signs are we talking about for a regular? I think we're all familiar with the election signs, you know, that everyone pretty much gets a standard.
I'm not sure.
I
what-
think they're 24 by 18. I think. I seem to remember that.
Through the chair.
Yes.
If we look at line 1371 under our current ordinance, section 1500029. Sorry, 1372.
4, 6, 8,
1372.
Yeah.
2,
It's disclosed there. It says,
footage.
shall be permitted to display 1 sign per each candidate. And funny story,
Oh, you're at the old,
Yeah.
the old one. Okay.
1372.
72.
72.
Okay.
8.
And that language should actually be stricken through. I'm not sure
So
why it's not being shown as.
No, actually, I wanted to see if that was something that we can keep because
8 by 8.
I know that we cannot. Okay. Okay.
That's the whole point.
think
I
I'm-
understand the desire, but the US Supreme Court won't let us do that anymore.
I
One
think
sign.
our intent, our goal should be that as much as possible, we consider aesthetics, you know,
Balance.
the neighborhood, the balance and all this, but there, again, if we're talking about an election, you know, let's, you know, give a little leeway to make sure that if someone has several candidates, that they don't have to, you know, if they feel strongly about it, about having a yard sign. But going back to the other signs, these are permanent signs in the yard.
These are temporary signs that you can have at any time of the year.
Okay.
So it doesn't matter what the message on the sign is.
No, you're
You
right.
could have a sign tomorrow for Valentine's Day. Or you could have a sign that expresses your interest in pickleball or any other, you know, whatever topic you want to talk about. So I think that the reason.
That's
I think
that's
it's
not
important
commercial.
to have. Correct.
topic
Thank
that's
you,
not commercial,
For that
so.
clarification. So I think it's important to make sure that we are comfortable with the limits on lines 825 to 829 before we go into the discussion on the additional temporary non-commercial signs before an election.
So through the chair, Heidi, just to be clear, with the way that it's said right now with the 8 square feet, all year long, we can have an average of 16 signs on a front lawn or anywhere. It would be, that's what we're trying to aesthetically get to, and which is the intent of the ordinance. So how do we limit that? Do we make the signs smaller, or because 16 signs is
It's
16
way too
signs.
much.
So that's.
Well, but that,
I
that
think,
presumes
Susan, do you want
a
to?
certain, that presumes a certain size of sign that, it may or may not be the size of sign that's placed, because there can be all different kinds of signs. I know you all are thinking about like a standard campaign sign, but under this section in particular, it might not be a campaign sign. It might be something completely different. So I would urge you not to, maybe give us some general guidance, but and I'm not good at the math, I apologize for that. But if a standard yard sign is basically 2 by 1.5, it's almost 2 by 2. I'm not sure where we're getting 16 signs. I'm getting confused. I apologize.
Oh, because it says it's the total of, right?
So
it says
let's.
on
You have a
line
total of
825.
8 square feet. So.
Correct,
in-
which is
in
4
8
feet by 2
square-
feet. 4
No,
by
no,
2
well-
is 8 square feet.
Isn't it square feet?
Yes,
Two by-
I'm thinking 16 square.
4 by 2, yeah.
Okay, so how many signs are we? My head's spinning. Approximately, let's talk political signs because we all know what that is. At 8 square feet on the lot, I would like to bring it down to, is that about 4 signs? I mean, it's hard to know because we don't know the political signs, how big they are. If they're 2 by 2 or 2 by 1.5 or,
1.5 by 2.
but it makes a difference, you know, of how many signs, because those are pretty standard signs too. It shouldn't be.
Well, just use
It's-
Mary, just use the length, right? 2 feet.
2 by
Just
2?
run with length, never mind width. And just run 2, 4, 6, 8. That's 4 signs.
Let's estimate 2 by 2.
Well, it's not quite 2 by 2. I think they're 24 by 18 inches, which is 2 foot by
A foot
foot and a
and a
half,
half.
right?
Yeah.
Okay, why don't we give that a little thought, and
Okay.
any of us that have concerns with that, we can talk with Heidi between now and the next reading. Does that sound reasonable as to?
And Madam Mayor,
Susan,
if,
for
Is
purposes
we
of-
getting,
as a methodology, if you want to tell us, we would like for there to be the equivalent of 4 standard political signs. We'll go do the math and we'll bring that back for you. Like if you have a vision of how many of those standard political signs, that would be helpful to have the consensus of the council, and we can bring back after we've done the math.
okay, and another reason for that is that if you know, the standard signs, if you are, and I'm thinking ahead to future elections, you know, there's a cost involved with getting them custom made to,
Mhm.
you know, the standard signs are the least expensive, and that's always a cost for anyone running for office. So I think let's assume the standard signs. What is everyone comfortable with? I think for temporary political, 4 or 5,
Well, 5 would
No.
cover the whole council and mayor, so.
and
that would-
in a general election, it would cover Senate, President, you know,
5 would be, I don't,
Congress. That
5
would
would
be enough.
be, yeah, I
Right,
think
that would
so.
be-
Well, what do you guys think? I think that
think
would be
so.
adequate, yeah.
All right, so let's do that political sign wise. These are for temporary 90 days before an election. And they have to be removed when?
Unless it's specified, it's 10 days. So 8/18 would provide the time for removal.
I'm sorry, Susan, what did you say? I didn't.
17, or 8.
Line
Oh,
8/18.
Okay, you have 10 days following the, okay, great.
Well, that's what
And-
that's what we're mandated as candidates, you know.
And I don't want to beat a dead horse, I apologize, but I want to clarify. When you say you want to be able to have 5 signs, and I understand that, I'm saying we would look at the allocation of signage available under 825 for yard signs, and we would add it to 833 for yard signs and make sure that we get to 5 standard political signs. Am I hearing you correctly?
For me, yes.
Yes.
That's what I
I
would-
Okay.
I would say, yeah, I would say yes too.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Okay. Okay, so, what is, my next question, Susan and Heidi, was, starting with line, I guess, 871, 872, section number C. What is this during winter? Additional temporary non-commercial sign during winter?
So that's
Is that for
optional.
Christmas decorations or?
It's something that some local governments like, that during season, we have more activity in general. It's also the days of the year are shorter. It's when you more often see people do additional lighting and signage. It's not something that you have to have, but I've had other clients that like the idea of it. So it's in here as an option for you.
I don't see any reason. I mean, doesn't apply to lighting. It doesn't, this no way restricts a person from being able to put lights on their house. Oh, are we talking? Oh, okay.
I think.
But if the
I
lights
think
are
870.
in the form of
Someone
text,
puts up like a little, sign of a, I don't know, snowman or something in their yard,
Christmas decoration,
Christmas decoration, like a snowman.
8
oh, look,
878.
and sometimes the lights spell out a message in text, just as an example.
But if someone is putting up, say, holiday decorations and they have a big
This says Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas, or just a big picture of a turkey, a big wooden sign of a turkey, that they homemade, is that fall under this? I mean, can't imagine anyone's going to complain about this, but I'd like to know
Yeah.
what we're talking about with winter.
But I'm just I'm sorry, to the chair. I'm confused with you, Mary. On 875, a property owner may place one additional temporary non-commercial sign on the lot during winter. I don't get that. Do
That's
you,
what
Phil?
that's what I'm asking. Why during winter are we making,
I like to put Merry Christmas. I like to put, I don't know.
and it's from November to March 15th, which is a pretty long time.
I just
It's
want to
not
make
just
sure.
December.
I don't want people calling me, what do you mean I
Oh,
can't
Thanksgiving.
decorate?
Well, I
I'm
think
surprised it doesn't back up to Halloween even. I mean, it says November, right? But
Yeah.
And I'll let
Halloween.
Mayor and Council, I'll let Susan speak to this and, answer your questions on this. Keep in mind, as she said, this is something that we've seen other clients want to do. The time frame, November 1st to March 15th, that can be adjusted if it's the council's desire, the same way that we can adjust the number of signs during this time period. So those are options that you have that we welcome your feedback on now. Susan, do you want to add to that?
An example, maybe? I don't know.
Well, I would just simply add that this is also a legacy of the fact that we can't be as specific as you would want to be. We're not allowed to say Christmas lights. We're not allowed to say, Halloween lights. We've got to be generic. And so within this time frame, you have a lot of occasions on which many different religions and cultures and societies engage in celebration. And so that's where this concept came from, is trying to accommodate for that in the sign code.
if I might.
Yes, sir.
Are we saying that, I'm just trying to clarify this. Are we saying that a sign during Christmas that says Merry Christmas we're considering that a sign, correct?
If you've got text, it's a sign. And that's the problem that arises.
So I can see why, you'd want extra signs during Christmas, because if you have Merry Christmas, Happy New Year all in one time, you're gonna put a lot of signs up.
And you have until January 5th to bring it down?
No,
You've got
March
10 days?
15th.
No.
And again,
No,
that date is one that we
right,
can
but
modify.
the time frame is the time frame outlines when you can have additional signs. But But we just finished saying that your signs have to be down, any sign related to an event has to be down 10 days after, which means that you've got till January 5th. And then you got it.
I think we're confusing ourselves here. Because Christmas decorations, in my opinion, are not a sign. It's an event. It's a holiday. It's
But that's what I was trying to
Yeah,
clarify.
yeah.
It says Merry Christmas.
yeah.
Is that, are we considering that a sign?
I've seen people in this town with Merry Christmas things with garland and lights and everything. It must go, what, 15 feet on a property.
I totally agree with you. I'm not disagreeing. I just
Yeah.
want to clarify this. Is that
Me
what
too.
we're talking
Listen,
about?
Me too.
I mean, it
It
sounds
should
like we're
be-
being nitpicky, but these are the kind of
Oh,
things that
exactly.
later, we're doing a new code, and if we're gonna do a new code, if
Do
we
it right.
understand it,
Yep.
you know, how do we
No,
expect our code enforcement
Totally. That's,
city
Certainly.
manager, or anyone to understand it,
and I
you
totally
know, years from.
I totally agree. I mean, you know, you have people
So-
spelling Merry Christmas and lights that could be 10 feet, you know, by
That-
3 feet.
I guess what I'm saying is that a sign? And I'm hearing that it is
It
based
is.
on
It's a
language.
Susan
based on
says that if it has a
language.
message.
Yeah.
So.
You
the
think it said
chair?
something.
So
I
I
like
can
to
see why.
Yes,
to
ma'am.
see if we can maybe exclude that and then maybe put where we just, if we're gonna focus on non-commercial seasonal signing to just be removed after a certain amount of days. I don't know if I want to get so technical
After the season.
into, yeah, like, you know, it's here they put March
March
15th,
15th.
so we can play with that
March
date and make
Madness.
it less.
Do you think about 4th of July or Halloween?
there's so many
The Ides of March.
So that's a good idea. Actually, I think Councilwoman Bravo has a good idea on that perhaps instead of a period, because Halloween is before November 1st, but 4th of July,
Also,
think about it, people like to put out, or Memorial Day or Easter can vary. It could be into April.
And
Um,
remember that your prior
Seasonal
section that we were
signs?
talking about already addresses, it doesn't matter what the sign is for. If you want to put up a happy 4th of July sign,
That's covered
that's
under
covered already.
previous
under
one.
The prior section that we were looking at earlier.
So do we need this section at all?
What this section does is your baseline is what's on 822, your temporary non-commercial signs. Your base is, you can, right now, it reads at line 825, you can place a sign or signs totaling no more than 8 square feet on the lot.
Mhm.
That's your base. Then subsection 2 builds on that and says, before an election, you can have an additional sign.
Mhm.
This section,
Mhm.
sub 6, says during this period from November 1st to March 15th, we're building on your base once again. So we're giving you greater
Latitude.
signage abilities.
That's 5 months out of the year.
And you can
Yeah,
change
that can be
Wh-
adjusted.
Whatever you want to adjust here, this is,
Well, I'm saying we're covering like half the year, but then the other half, we're acting, I think perhaps we shouldn't have a date. Just if it's possible, just if it's a seasonal sign, you know, it has to be removed after,
Are we not allowed to call it seasonal either? Is that what you?
we can't use the term seasonal. Heidi, you're looking at somewhere else. Is that
Madam
something we
Mayor?
can't use either?
Susan, help me out
Constantly
here.
learning terms.
Seasonal.
Madam Mayor,
Season's
what I'm-
greetings.
What I'm hearing you say is that you'd like to see a version of this that would be more like an event sign. So it's a non-commercial event. And what would you want the duration for that kind of sign to be? So whether it be 4th of July or Christmas or any, culture, religion, it doesn't matter what it is, but it's an event that's being celebrated. I would question how long the council believes that duration should last.
Keeping in mind, Susan, I think I agree with you, but I just want to clarify. For purposes of our code officers, they can't go out there and read what the sign says. So.
Well, they can, if it's
Susan,
an event
You know
related
where I'm
thing,
going with that?
I do, but if it's event related, they can calculate the time to remove following the event. And so generally, I would expect that the council may be
Can you
thinking of a max. I apologize. What was that?
Can you repeat that, Susan? You're breaking up. You're breaking up. The internet is, we're being told the internet connection is unstable.
Apologies.
Let's use
Um,
Thanksgiving as an example. I think that's pretty neutral.
It is. And so are you
Um,
thinking that
if-
Thanksgiving decorations should be up for 4 weeks and then removed within 10 days following the event? That's just one example. How long do you believe the signage related to an event of this non-commercial kind in a residential area should be able to be up there?
I would say
How often do
30
people like
days. I
put
mean,
a-
people leave their,
Right, but like, you know, a
holiday
cornucopia or a, like a giant turkey isn't a sign because there's no text, right? So like,
Happy
I don't think
Thanksgiving.
anybody's, I mean, I guess somebody could put Happy Thanksgiving in lights, like, but they've already gotten like they've already got up to 8 feet that they could use as a baseline, 8 square feet that they could use as a
Yes.
baseline.
Yes.
I mean, I don't mind making a little bit of an accommodation during winter. I just don't think that winter should be 4 months long.
I think we could fix this very easily on 6 by just going additional temporary non-commercial sign and come up with verbiage that would satisfy 12 months of the year. I mean, like special event, whatever.
Well-
But just kill winter because that's specificity. You know, it says a certain time only.
If I might.
Yeah.
If we do that, I mean, Indianapolis 500 is an event.
Yeah.
You want to,
Have you ever seen an Indianapolis 500 sign in Miami Springs?
I have not.
No, I haven't
But I'm
either.
not saying that.
No, but that, I hear you.
that You're opening it up to that. And I don't, and not that I'm just
Yeah.
letting everybody know that that's.
No. I
An
mean,
event can be anything
this is
that's happening.
it
So,
is. But how about the birth of a child? It's a boy. It's a girl.
Yeah.
So
You're
Councilman,
gonna limit that? I mean,
through the mayor, if I may, if that's the desire, then we simply go back to 825 and make it bigger. Because all you've done is you've added a little bit of more signage to 825 if it's year round. And we can do
Increase
that.
the 8
That's
square
within your
feet?
discretion.
know that.
no, I know. Yeah.
I hear the frustration.
perhaps-
I know you want to tailor and to target. It's just that's precisely what we cannot do. And so we just have to stay within this framework of maybe certain timeframes or an event relation is the most that we can do.
Well,
Well,
since
how
we're
about-
back on that, so the more I think about 814, 4 square feet, like I think, so we're using political signs, not because it's a political sign, just because it's like a breadbasket. We have an idea of what size it is. The standard size of a political sign is not 2 by 2. I think it's like 2 by 3. It's a rectangle. It's not a perfect square. I think that if you're limiting the baseline to any sign 4 square feet and you have a political sign, that's 1.
I think
'Cause-
they could be 2 by 18 by 1.5. That's the problem is we need, if we're talking about that in our mind, we were not really sure. So it's hard to know.
Yeah.
I think she.
I mean, there's a big difference between,
So can we table some of these to give us some time to think about it and have them
find
You
out
know,
how much is
find out,
the
right,
size
and
of a political sign.
leave it for a second reading and then kind of discuss
We
this
certainly
further?
can do that, Madam Mayor, but I just want to recap the direction already received. That under 825 and 833 together, you want to be able to achieve 5 standard political signs. That's standard campaign size, which I believe is 24 by 18 inches. And so we're going to adjust those numbers to accommodate that. What I'm saying to you is this additional signs for holiday, winter, whatever, events around the year, that if it's year round, then you simply just make a larger amount of signage available here in the year round provision, and that would cover. If you think that the equivalent of the 5 campaign size signs is enough, then you wouldn't need the winter signage.
Well, why don't we just change during winter to additional temporary non-commercial signs for special events?
And that's something that I was
Special-
suggesting I could
special
look at.
occasions. I'm gonna
Councilman.
wordsmith this to make it be all inclusive. Yeah.
We could make it more
4th of July,
event oriented if that's the preference.
Occasions, can we, is that
18 by
okay to
24.
use for special occasions?
I mean, that would be a word that would work, I think.
Mayor, for what it's worth, I'm here looking online and standard yard sign sizes are typically 18 by 24.
That's what
Which
that's what
is
we're saying.
That's what we
less than
said,
2
yeah.
by 2, so it's half by 2.
Okay, so that
Okay.
falls into what we were discussing earlier and all agreed on that.
Okay, so let's word this. I think we've all agreed on 5 signs, the equivalent of 5
Right.
political signs, whatever that winds up being.
Mhm.
Um,
Mhm.
And to be
And-
clear, that would be 5 signs year round, so that's what you would want for 8/24.
No, in the 90-day period before elections.
So what Susan was talking about, of
Yes.
Right.
once you combine your baseline with the additional signs during an election, you get to 5.
yes,
Okay.
Thank you.
And to
and
say.
then the rest
I
for
apologize.
special occasions, if there's something that we say, you know. I don't
That's
know how we
exactly
can do
the-
that because I guess anyone could.
That's exactly
I'm
the
sorry,
point,
go ahead.
Madam Mayor. If you have 5 political signs, then there's no sign area left for your Thanksgiving sign, because that's November, as an example. So if you wanted to allow
I think
5
that's-
political equivalent signs plus more, then you would add another.
Yeah, I think, I mean, we're already going to the extreme that someone wants 5 political signs in their yard, which I don't
Most
think most
don't.
people don't. So I
Most
don't
don't.
know that that's.
Yeah.
We just want to make sure someone has the option to do that since.
Mhm.
And I would just Heidi and Susan,
We have some-
if we use the term special occasion to who? To the homeowner?
No, I would recommend
That could be
event.
anything.
That's what has a basis in the case law.
Susan, can you repeat what your recommendation is with regard to
The terminology of
winter
event.
signs or special occasions?
Yeah, we
Yeah.
can make a provision for an additional sign that's event oriented and set a duration and set a
Mhm.
time for removal.
Duration, yes.
Excellent.
Okay, that sounds
Good.
good.
Mayor, can I just
Yes, sir.
advocate for something one more time? I feel like when people decorate for all kinds of things for 4th of July, for like, I get that, but signs with text, it strikes me that the time of year when most people will put up that type of signage where it's text, either with lights or as a sign, it's around Hanukkah, Christmas, like so I get the other cities are using winter, I believe, for a reason, because I think that's a time of year that you probably should be a little more accommodating. I just don't think that November 1st to March 15th, that's not winter to me. But I think that we should look to maybe like in the month of December, allow a little bit more, because people do, like I think of when you drive past when you go down Bluebird and Bass Lake, like people have giant Merry Christmas signs because it reflects in the water and it looks pretty. Like I think that being accommodating in the month of December makes sense, because there's a lot of cultures that have holidays at that time, and that tends to be the time of year where people really, I mean, because we got holidays year round, but I mean, like Halloween, you're not putting a lot of text as signs during Halloween. You may decorate, but you do see that around December. So I would favor making that accommodation. I wouldn't call it winter, but like to me, the month of December, I think is a good thing. I don't agree with the 4-month period from November to March.
Okay, so I think we should start in Thanksgiving because people start decorating early now. By the way,
Sure.
just for clarification, I know the signs you're talking about on lakes and all, that's private property. So that's, the lake is behind. So this doesn't apply to anything in somebody's backyard.
That doesn't fall under the sign code.
Does-
Yeah,
It does fall under the sign
Right.
code, right, Susan?
I mean the
Question-
front
the
yard is their
question-
private property too.
The
It's
question
visible from
is-
off the property.
Okay, all right. So it does apply to those. Okay.
So but I like your idea. I would favor after Thanksgiving till the end of December, and that's it. And then
Probably a little further because
Yeah.
nobody gets their,
travel
you know,
and stuff.
you don't want
The
to,
Three Kings Day, I think a lot of the Hispanic community
at least mid-January. I mean, people,
celebrates. Yeah.
You need time to
I would say the end of January. I mean. before
Okay, or the,
January.
you know, that's
Can
kind
I
of.
keeping our hurricane shutters up all year round. I know these people.
Well, there's,
Can
I
I
know, I,
offer an easy date?
Yes.
November 15th to January 15th.
There you go.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. I don't think it's going to be a big deal. If someone's told, you know, remove the sign, they'll do it by then. So that makes sense. I think that's reasonable. All right.
By the way, just as much as you're struggling with this,
No, I
we
know.
struggle with.
I believe you do. Yeah.
But I think all of us that have been here on the council can foresee, you know, these things. And then it's like, that's what it says. And signs are really something that anyone can and want to have in their yard. Okay, so maintained in good condition. My next one was item, let's see, line 895. When we talk about banners shall be removed when temporary construction is removed or when there's no active permits for the site of the fencing.
Mhm.
How about if they're not in good condition? Do we already have that somewhere? I didn't see it. That if the banner, you know, some of these banners on construction sites on fences have been there for 2 years and
Yeah.
they're just raggedy and faded. So can we add something about they're either maintained in good condition or they have to be removed?
But Mayor, some of those signs, like, so whenever you see people, you know, they're getting a roof done. And so the roofing company, but that's commercial then, right? So that shouldn't apply.
Oh, this is
In a case-
banners on fences.
Okay, but I thought
This
it
is
said
commercial.
It's only
Construction
construction
fencing.
fences.
on construction fencing, what you have is commercial signage for the contractor that's doing the work. So that doesn't apply here because it's commercial rather than non-commercial.
Well, it's a
And
commercial
Madam
sign,
Mayor-
but it's on private property.
Yes, Susan.
Line 800, it currently says durable and weatherproof material, but I do understand what you're saying. Even durable material can fade and be in not good repair. So we can clarify maintenance for that, for the temporary sign type, you know, making sure that it retains its original quality.
Yes, that if it's all, I know some of them get torn with, you know, like cuts all over them and they're just flopping in the wind. And so just something about maintained in good condition or they have to be removed. And again, these are
Yes,
for
ma'am.
instances where, you know, it's a visible concern that we have something to, and it provides guidance for, you know, the property owner as to this is what you're supposed to do. It's not just, you know, that we're giving a hard time. It's that we've got a clear, consistent message of, you know, this is what needs to be done in these situations.
And Mayor, I know, I just noticed, I apologize. This whole section is about commercial signage.
Only.
So that being the case, what you brought up about on 895, I think that makes sense to require the commercial signage be removed from, you know, after the construction. If there's no active permits and construction is over,
Sign comes down.
those should come down.
Yes. And if it's not in good condition, you know, flopping and everything that.
So just to clarify, so that when we're going back and making some of these revisions, as far as maintenance of the signs, whether they're temporary non-commercial signs or commercial signs, I think that what I'm hearing is you want the signs, irrespective of what type of sign it is, to be maintained. They shouldn't be tattered or worn.
Right. Correct.
Okay. And then with respect to the construction fences, the banners on those construction fences, the time frame there is acceptable to you on 895. That it be removed once.
No, when permits are closed, construction's over.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay, I think I'm nearing the end of my questions. Okay, I have section, well, let's see, line 1193. Master sign plan. Do we currently have a master sign plan? Or is that something we need to create?
This is part of your current process.
I'm sorry, Mayor, you said.
Sign,
on
1193.
1193.
And then line 1194, it says a master sign plan shall serve as the controlling document for review of all applications. And I'm asking, do we already have a master sign plan? I mean, it seems to me kind of, it's like our process for this document. I'm not sure. Is that a separate, unique document that
Chris,
needs to be created?
When we get a site plan for development, is signage part of that?
We'll typically put in the condition that it's channel letters only, but we don't really require a master site plan. It's never been done.
Okay.
Chris, I don't think it's a master site. I think it's a master sign.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Sign plan.
So this is something that carried over from our existing code that we retained. But if it should be
Okay.
eliminated,
Well, I don't like
I would-
saying we're doing something if we're not, you know,
would
or
dump
that
it. I mean,
something's
just-
required if it's not.
in NMB, we had one for almost 30 years and never had one, but it was on the books. the whole
Okay.
time.
Through the chair,
Yes.
Chris, can you tell me what would be the purpose for the master sign plan before we decide to do anything with it?
Well, I
Is there a
guess
perk? Is there an advantage? Maybe it clears out the air.
it depends on your perspective. Some businesses want you to have all white channel letters. Other people want a certain placement, a certain letter style. They may want you to do the Arial or Times New Roman, whatever. It's really more a
Cosmetic approach?
from the property owner, yes. And it makes it really difficult. It makes it very limited. We had lots of instances where, Red Hots had to have their sign in white and not red, and they wanted red, but the master sign code said white, so. it's-
Okay. Well, the thing is, in this paragraph, if this is from our existing code, it makes reference to all master sign plans shall be approved by the Architectural Review Board, which I'm sure that's not happening. We're not
it's-
sending.
To my knowledge,
them
it's never
to-
been done.
Okay,
It's-
so
It's cumbersome.
we
it's
probably need to,
difficult.
and there's no reason that you see,
No, there's
so we
really.
probably need to remove this
as long
unless
as the
there's some
signs
other
are
reason.
Channel letters or quality signs and they have a reasonable placement to one another, not one up here on the next bay over here, that kind of thing.
Okay.
We'd like to let people do letter style, letter size, letter color, that's to their liking. You don't want to over-regulate it. You want to be attractive, of
Right.
course.
But is there like a minimum standard of quality at least? I mean, not regulating so much the color. but-
Well, we do require that they be, or the proposal is that we allow individual letters only, 1 inch depth minimum. So you can't just get cheap cut
Right.
a panel of plexi or something like that. They have to have depth to them and actually
And
have a presence on the wall.
Is that stipulated in the master sign plan?
No, that's just in the
That's
sign code in general.
General, okay.
So in other words, you get a site plan, the building goes up, then they would have to come to us for a sign permit.
They
a
come
separate
each
sign.
individually, and then we would have specific restrictions. Like I say, typically now, until we get, if we get the channel letter requirement adopted, that's something that we put in all of our new projects. Town
Okay.
center, you name it, anything that's going up new, it's channel letters that are required.
So
Okay.
we need to, because also we're saying that it has to be reviewed by the Architectural Review Board, which
Yeah.
is not being done. We want to get
should
that
catch that.
out of there if there's,
It's
it might be, we might want to say maybe, I guess the council,
it's
maybe referred
cumbersome.
for review.
Can't we take
Cumbersome
out
is
this
fine.
whole section?
Yes.
If
Unless
we're,
we want to put in there that for certain circumstances, if there's something questionable
wouldn't.
that, that it may be referred to them, to the Architectural Review Board for review.
Well,
Do it-
Madam
If-
Mayor,
caveat to
if I
leave it.
may.
We don't have a master sign plan.
Plan, well,
Then
you're
it-
not requiring it. It's from,
Yeah, but
Yeah,
we
keep
don't
in mind,
have
we're
one.
not-
I agree.
Not gonna have one.
No, I don't
then-
like to say we have stuff that we don't have.
Yeah, no,
By any
We're not
means,
talking
or
about
that
a
we
Madam
master
have.
sign plan that the city had. The individual
Right,
property owners
They
would
submit a
have
master
a
sign
master
plan,
site plan
sign
that
plan for
the
their,
city agrees to.
so it's really just a sign plan. I mean, I think
Madam
the
Mayor?
master confuses.
but they,
makes it
they come
seem-
to you for sign anyways.
Yes, of course.
Right. To me, I feel like it's just overly
Okay.
complicated.
It's
May-
cumbersome, it's pointless.
Right.
Madam Mayor.
I think Susan was trying to.
Yes,
chime in.
sorry, Susan.
No problem.
Yes.
I recommend just removing this if you don't want it. And I think Chris gave a good example of what the meaning is. You see these commercial properties that try to be very specific about what they look like. You know, this one is all white, this one is all red. And some communities want to see every property have to have that kind of branding and come in for a city approval. You're not required to do that. You can simply have uniform requirements for quality, which is what Chris is advocating. So if that's the preference of this body, I recommend removing the whole section.
So through the chair, are we saying here that we want to remove all of -038 in its entirety?
Yes,
I would say yes.
yes.
Okay.
And then whatever is of a
What about the
concern.
Wait, what about section B, technical deviation?
I just read through that. That's why I was
That-
wondering, because I don't
that's
see anything there.
only-
that
And
would-
again, it says approved by the Architectural Review Board.
No.
That is only a
And
deviation
under
to
C,
a master sign plan. So if there's no master sign plan, there's no
Okay,
need for
so
a deviation.
remove all of that. Okay.
because if you look past this on -039, that's reserved. So what would you do? Just eliminate this and make 038 reserved as well in the ordinance?
Yes, sir. It would be from
Yeah.
1193 to 1258 being deleted.
Okay.
And then
Susan.
038
Thank
would be
you.
reserved.
I'm good with that.
Yep.
And now we get to section 150, 41, line 1277. And we have the portable storage units there. I'm not sure why this is in a
So-
sign code.
So to clarify, Madam Mayor, we are not touching this at all. We just had to renumber it and reorganize it because it was currently in this chapter. So these are not
Oh.
really related to signs.
Okay.
So if you look at line 1265, we're creating a new division 2 to show that the end of the sign code is in division 1. And then division 2 are these miscellaneous provisions.
I wasn't sure why portable storage units would be under the sign code, but I see what you mean. Okay.
Through the
Good
chair,
question.
Yes.
I had a question. I'm sorry, thank you. Line 1286, it says there shall not be no more than one portable storage unit located on any site or property at any time. Is there a limitation to how long they can have that portable storage unit on their property?
Yes,
You
we
need
have
to
a
get a
permit
permit.
Have it?
process
Okay.
for anyone that puts in a pod.
Yep.
And I think it's 6 months.
I think it is 6,
Yeah.
William, yes.
Okay. 1 second. Oh, 90 days. There was one last thing, that I think this is probably where we need to discuss it. In, our commercial area, say Westward Drive, when a business closes, and I know we've had this with several properties, and they leave behind just a vacant mess. There was one that, had chairs overturned and empty trash cans with paper on the floor, and the windows. You can look as you walk by, you just look in there and, it's just an abandoned inside area. Would this fall under signs to require some sort of window covering when a business is vacated? Some sort of, like you see maybe at the mall and stuff when they say, something coming. I mean, they don't have to have wording on it, but just something uniform of either brown paper or white paper or where else would that be? Would we put something like that?
So some cities, and Susan may want to speak to this as well, some cities treat that under general property maintenance standards. And we have a separate code section in Miami Springs that deals with that. Susan, I don't recall if we really treat that in a sign code to the extent that you wanted to require some sort of specific branding, then perhaps it would be appropriate in the sign code. But if you're just saying, go ahead, Susan.
I do think it's likely that we would recommend that it be in the property maintenance section, but we're familiar with several examples of that. And so if the council could simply give us their guidance, A, do you want it? And B, if you want it, do you want it to simply be a kind of blank, or do you want it to have some kind of visual interest? And then usually what I'll see is it's some kind of generic language that's celebrating the city. It's not like advertising specific products that you would see on that type of covering.
I think a good example of that recently is in the city of Coral Gables on Miracle Mile. I believe they had a campaign over the last
Shop, work, play.
the last
Yeah.
5 years, sort of all blurred together. But they did have a shop local, Coral Gables is beautiful, branded banners that went inside of these vacant storefronts. So if that's something that you would like to do, we can certainly pursue something like that. And I think, as Susan was saying, it would be in a separate ordinance.
Okay. Do we have consensus for you just to bring us information on that, on something? I think that would be, nice. And if it's
It'd be
something
interesting
like
to see what the current code says
to,
as a.
right. But
First,
there,
yeah.
there's no reason for something, because really it is maintenance of property. If I'm looking into a
Right.
window and seeing, disaster, what
Right.
things look like when you move out,
Right.
and
mean,
that's
if it's-
consistently.
Mayor, if it's to keep it from looking dilapidated, then I'd be interested to see what the language is, not to kind of send them going in a different direction. I don't know that I would go so far as to like require certain type of branding, but I agree with you. If a place is shut down, like, you shouldn't be able to look inside and see, like,
I think it's also applicable with the new business coming in, to cover like what they're doing inside until the grand opening. A lot of businesses will do that. I think
So perhaps we can require something, and Heidi, maybe like Councilman Fahet suggested, if we could find out if anything's required right now. I don't think it is, because I think we would have, required that. But, and then the two possibilities would be either, the owner has, they have to cover it in, say, white or brown paper, something not bright orange or, fluorescent pink. But other than that, perhaps we can offer the option of some kind of branding of shop local or something, City of Miami Springs, that is also available to them, and let them decide. I don't think we need to require one or the other, but it would be nice if we had that opportunity available to them. And I don't know how we do that with the cost, that they'd just cover that they would cover the cost of whatever that is.
Yeah, it's
So-
it's something that a property owner would have to incur the cost of. I do know of other cities that have put out branding guides, and those guides actually have very specific requirements for what on construction fencing, for example. Some cities say you're gonna have your construction fence is gonna have the city's branding, and then you can have the architect, the contractor, the whole development team listed, and there's percentages, and it gets to be pretty intricate, but it makes for a nice banner sign to introduce the business that's coming. Or you can just have a straight, craft paper.
Right. It could be just craft paper, but something,
Yeah.
but perhaps, and I guess that wouldn't be something we'd have to look at into it. And that might be something to discuss at the Business and Economic Development Task Force, since we're talking about, I know they, several of the recommendations about making the downtown area more aesthetically pleasing. Okay. I think that ends my questions on this. Susan, thank you very, very much. Does anyone else have any additional questions for
No, ma'am.
Susan or Heidi?
Do not.
Susan, thank you very much.
You're welcome,
Your,
Madam Mayor, and let me thank you
expertise is
for
very
thank you for your careful reading and your good questions. We'll follow up on them and respond on second reading.
Okay, great. Thank you. Good night.
Good night.
Okay. So
We should have a motion on first reading to approve this on first reading
with the changes,
with these revisions.
Through the chair, motion to approve 11A
Second that,
with the
the
changes.
changes.
with the changes, the aforementioned changes
I'll
that were
second.
discussed.
Okay. Any discussion? I have a first and a second. Call the vote, please.
Vice Mayor Loeb.
Aye.
Councilman Bez,
Aye.
Councilwoman Bravo,
Yes.
Councilman Behet,
Yes.
Mayor Mitchell.
Yes,
The motion carries.
thank you. Um. Okay, was there anything else we needed to move up?
I think you hit them. I think you hit them all, Mayor.
Did we do?
Yeah, I think so.
Consent agenda?
Pardon me?
Did we do?
Yeah.
No, we got to go back.
It's that-
It's just picking things to move up.
Two things up.
You moved,
Since it had been here from the earlier meeting
Yeah, you moved Omar up,
at the LPA
and
meeting.
then we went back to Joan Cavalier. and
Okay,
then
so
you moved
we're
up.
at approval of council minutes for the January 23rd regular meeting.
Motion to move the item, Mayor.
Second.
Okay, any discussion? Call the vote, please.
Vice Mayor Loeb,
Aye.
Councilman Bez,
Aye.
Councilwoman Bravo,
Yes.
Councilman Behet,
Yes.
Mayor Mitchell.
Yes.
The motion carries.
Okay, thank you. The next agenda item will be 9 consent agenda. Does anyone have anything they want to pull out for independent discussion?
Mayor, I'd like to pull, I would like to pull 9C, please.
Okay. All right, is there a motion to for,
Motion to move 9A and 9B at this time.
Second.
all right, in discussion? Call a vote, please.
Vice Mayor Loeb,
Aye.
Councilman Bez,
Aye.
Councilwoman Bravo,
Yes.
Councilman Behet,
Yes.
Mayor Mitchell.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Okay, 9C, Councilman Best.
Thank you, Mayor. Through the chair, it's a simple question, and if it's answered the way I hope it will be, it'll go away and we'll just approve it. But is this the one that's about the deal that the city has with these people that are supposed to display that big flag?
That's, it's in that
Okay,
general area.
okay, that's my question.
That our lease for that cell tower is with Crown Castle.
Okay,
This is Verizon. They want to put in some equipment of their own
okay,
within that same area. And what they're asking for here is before they do that, they need to do a survey. So this is just giving them permission to access the property to do the survey. Once they do that, Verizon, we have a cell agreement for the equipment that we're working on. Where I think the amount is they're gonna give us like $15,000 a year in rental revenue for the use of that
Right, right.
area and
Yeah,
that
I knew-
equipment.
I knew that.
This
was-
is aside from Crown Castle. Crown Castle, with the flag, we've been, we're able to get, our city attorney to put us in contact with a person that does their governmental affairs, regarding the flag. And I'll let Tammy's been involved
Okay.
with them and Heidi, so I'll let Tammy give you an update on what's going on with the flag.
It's just to mention here that this is a much asked question around town about that big flag that used to fly.
She'll give you a response
Okay.
from Crown Castle.
So basically, we were back and forth with Crown Castle. And much to our surprise, we learned that when they were doing some repairs, maintenance up on that big pole, that one of the lanyards from the flag broke loose, and basically it almost caused a fire or an electricity shock to the people that were working there.
Sure.
So they said that because it became such a liability and a life safety issue, that they had to remove that whole mechanism from the pole there, the antenna. So right now, we are not able to do anything with putting a flag back up there. But we have met with them, and they have offered to have a new pole put somewhere else in the city, and at their expense, a slightly smaller pole, obviously,
75 feet.
like about a
75
70,
feet.
I think it was a 75-foot pole. Liz Laz from Public Works, we all met out there. And so we're working on trying to find a new location for a flagpole. And this will be done at their expense. And then it would become, the city would be the one bringing down the flag, replacing the flag, et cetera. But at this point, due to safety and life safety and hazardous conditions on that pole, we are not able to put a flag back up on that current
If you go to that area, you'll
antenna.
see that the power lines are right under the pole.
Yes.
Well, did anybody ask the question of these folks that maybe we could go from a alloy lanyard to a rope?
we've explored several options with them.
That one?
And so what happens is if any of that rope or any of those type of mechanisms break loose, that flag, the size of those flags and the size of those ropes or the mechanisms that would hold the flag, if they were to break loose and touch any of those power lines, it would cause an immediate outage in the area.
Yet that flag flew for years.
Through the
I
chair.
know, but all it takes is one
Until it
life
happens.
safety issue,
Right.
and
Yeah. That's a shame because that kind of was a signature of Miami Springs in a way.
yes, it
you know?
is.
But I think that they've offered to put a large flagpole elsewhere in the
Elsewhere,
city
yes.
is nice. I know once you have an incident, to repeat that
Yeah.
situation
It's like a
again.
stop sign, putting stop signs in.
It's,
You get an accident and then now you got justification. Before that, nobody wants to listen to it, right?
Right.
So we're looking at areas. So if any of you have any ideas, please tell Tammy as to where we could put the flagpole. We were thinking that off of Canal Street,
When they
by the-
finish, yeah,
when that
when the
project is
construction,
finished and Canal Street opens up in that green area on the canal side.
Oh, that would make sense because that's in the same area and it's,
Yeah.
kind of
where
the
the
picture.
catwalk is.
Well, the
into-
catwalk and the
everything.
bridges are all there and everything. Yeah, yeah.
Look
Uh,
at-
but-
and that's probably a good thing to invite residents, anyone that's the audience, but also listening virtually, to invite them if they have suggestions to contact, reach out to one of us on the council and, and give us your suggestion.
Yep.
Of where to put.
Mayor, when they did have the flag, was there lighting? Was it lit at night? And nobody was bringing that big flag down,
I
right?
believe it was, Walt. Yes.
So if they're gonna give us a flagpole, like, it doesn't make sense for us to have staff put it up and down, right? They
No,
should cover the
it's
cost
light,
of
yes.
lighting so that it can be lit and be up all the time, and then way we don't.
Yeah. It certainly must be lit at night. Must
Yeah.
be.
Yes.
Yeah.
Unless it's taken down.
No,
Yeah,
but
no,
it's-
because
it's-
then that's no favor to us if we have to put
It's
it
so
up
much
and bring it down
prettier
every
to
day.
have it
Okay,
24 hours.
so we'll bring our suggestions to you going forward then on that, I guess. Mayor, with that explanation, I move that we move 9C.
Through the chair.
Yes, ma'am.
Before we move, just to clarify, are we still under an active agreement with, what is it, Crown Castle?
Crown
Castle.
Castle, yes.
Okay.
Yep.
Because it was already.
Yeah.
So for the next coming budget, I mean, everything has gone up in prices. I know cellular phones have gone up. Maybe we can entertain charging a little bit more.
That
Well,
agreement is
they're-
effective until 2025.
2025, and it includes an annual 4% cost of living increase. So right now, we're getting close to, last year, we got $110,000 in payment every year, and it goes up 4% every
Every-
year.
okay, I didn't know that.
Contract, Yeah.
That's cool.
When is the contract up?
2025.
Can we ask, so I know that those cell phone the companies have different designs. They have some that like mimic trees. They have like different, like this one is meant to be like a flagpole, right? Except it's not being used that way. So when we go to renegotiate that contract, can we ask that, like, I mean, they're the ones that decided to put it in the form of a flagpole.
Yeah.
And now they say like it doesn't work that way. Can we get something else that isn't a flagpole?
Absolutely.
We'll negotiate.
And try
when the
to
time comes.
negotiate.
And just
Um,
on the point of the amount that's being paid for the proposed Verizon agreement, that's not before you right now, because this agreement is just so that they can go and do the surveying work that they need to do so that we can move forward with that next step. But we have negotiated with them on the price. The pricing escapes me right now, but we did push back and ask for an increase on what they had proposed. So we'll be bringing that to you once the surveying all of that part is done.
Thank you, Heidi. Anybody else has anything on this item?
Well, I think we need a second, right?
I'll
That's-
second it.
Okay. Call the vote, please.
Vice Mayor Loeb,
Aye.
Councilman Best.
Aye.
Councilwoman Bravo,
Yes.
Councilman Fahet,
Yes.
Mayor Mitchell.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Okay, thank you. Is Bill here? Is Bill going to discuss this item? I'm just the leave.
I'll go ahead and read the title.
Well, if
Mayor.
he's not busy, William, I was just thinking we'd move up, because I know Liz and and Laz have been waiting so long. Okay.
This This is item 11B. It's an ordinance of the city of Miami Springs, Florida, amending section 34-16 leave of the city's code of ordinances to update the bereavement leave policy, providing for conflicts, providing for severability, providing for codification, and providing for an effective date. This is an ordinance again on first reading. The changes are set forth in a very, unlike our very lengthy sign code ordinance, this is a simple 3-page ordinance, most of which is signature, so.
Hello.
Bill?
It's just housekeeping, we're just trying to update it. I don't like the name death leave, and we just had, some questions about who's covered under the policy the other day. So we're submitting this just to update it, that's all.
And could you just briefly describe what the update is?
Yeah, well, we right now, the certain people aren't included. For instance, stepchildren, that's something that, even though I think we would consider that to be a like a child, we want to make sure that we mention that the domestic partner, stepchild, stepsister, stepbrother, son-in-law, daughter-in-law, and an adult who stood in loco parentis to the employee during childhood. These are all things that are recommended by SHRM. They have a model policy. So we're just taking these particular familiar relationships directly from SHRM. There's another category that's in the collective bargaining agreements that says any person in the general family living within the same household. We're providing it already to the police in their union contracts. So we want to give the same opportunity for general employees who aren't in the union. And let's see, we're not requiring, right now, the ordinance requires that an employee attend the funeral. It's something that's difficult to enforce, but also, there might be some reasons why they don't attend the funeral, or many cases, especially nowadays, that the funeral or maybe some sort of memorial is done much further down the line.
Later on, yeah.
So we don't want to bind people with that. And that's pretty much it. It's pretty simple.
And in local parentis,
Local parentis,
which
right.
I have to ask,
Right, is
what
it
is
local?
that?
Yeah.
Sounds Latin.
But but there are plenty of instances where where people have been taken in as children. There were a lot of the Pedro Pan
Right.
folks and so forth who
Raised by someone else.
were taken in, so it gives an opportunity to to give bereavement leave for those purposes. We're trying to make it as broad as possible without being unreasonable, and protect the city's interests as well. So
All right, thank you, Bill. Any
Thanks, Billy.
questions for Bill?
No, ma'am.
All right, is there a motion?
So moved.
A second.
All right, any more discussion? Call the vote, please.
This one will also come back on the 27th.
Okay.
Vice Mayor Loeb,
Aye.
Councilman Best,
Hi.
Councilwoman Bravo,
Yes.
Councilman Behet,
Yes.
Mayor Mitchell.
Yes,
The motion carries.
thank you. We move to item,
Bill.
thank
Thank
you,
you,
Bill.
Billy.
We move to item 12A, request by Councilman Best.
Thank you, Mayor. As we've all heard, in both our emails and in person, Ralph Wakefield intends to move up to upstate Florida, to Longwood, I think it's the name of the town, outside of Orlando, to help with his grandchildren. And I thought this was an appropriate time that we would consider, relative to the Hall of Fame, or Wall of Fame, I should say, in the community center, the gymnasium side. There are 3 names up there: Ray Strock, Doug Orr, and Jim Cottle at the moment. I thought it would be absolutely appropriate for Ralph Wakefield's name to be put there before he were to leave. I don't know what that timing would be, but I thought I would bring it to you folks for your valued consideration. I think Ralph has certainly made a name for himself in this town relative to the arts, the performing arts, over the years, since 1999 to be specific. And the many hundreds of people that have run through that program that, you see 15, 20 years later at Milam's and they're taller than you are, you go, wait a minute, I used to act with this person, kind of thing. Maria knows what I'm talking about. So anyway, I put it on the table for your consideration this evening. There was one thing that Ralph got wind of what I was trying to do. I don't know how. I think he must have read the advanced agenda or something. But he called me and said, I didn't do this by myself. He said the theater manager is very much part of this. So I don't know how you do that, though.
Is that Nancy?
Yes,
I
Nancy
wrote-
Jones. I think.
Could
Can you
say
put like Nancy Ralph? Okay.
Yes.
Then
Because
you know.
it's true. She's been-
Yes, and Ralph said that to me, and I said, well, I don't know how you put two people in one, but I guess we'll just leave it up to our to figure out how to do that, maybe. But
And the whole thing that we're talking about, which one is this? This
The
is
one-
the
it's in the
the one
community
that's
center, the
inside the
basketball
gym?
courts
Okay.
inside. If you walk,
The gazebo. Too.
yeah, if you walk in there
Okay.
and
then
you
we're
look
gonna-
back up on the ceiling above the running track, that's where the names are, right up there on the wall.
I think that's a lovely thought. And personally, I agree. Ralph has been doing this for so many decades and, it's part of the recreation department and, a lot of not just children, but adults. They may not be a particular sport that they want to play, but this is another type of recreation
That's right.
activity, of being in theater and he really does. His productions are amazing. If you're there, you're part of, every aspect of it it's not just the acting, it's the putting the production together. So,
And it is a
he's touched
major,
so many lives,
sure has.
provided that opportunity for so many, and brings young children and adults together. The last
Yeah,
place, the
yeah. Oh, yeah,
Mystery Diaries, what was that? I
the
forget.
mystery of theater.
Mystery Theater was awesome
Yeah.
a few weeks ago. It was a
But
lot of
and
fun.
it is part of it. The other thing is that it's appropriate because it's part of the recreation department, major league and public works as well supports him in his endeavors and setting up the room and everything for, prior to the productions and breaking it down. And it is part of the recreation and Omar supports him to the end of the earth. I know that. So
Okay.
I'll leave it with you guys.
Do we need a vote on that or just consensus?
Yeah, my only question was, I forgot that Doug Orr is up there, right? I thought that maybe it was like the names by the Cavalier Clock, which is people that are no longer with us, but I guess if contemporary people that are still alive and kicking. I sometimes worry about naming things after people.
Yeah,
because,
no, I share your concern and well, I could
yeah,
say
not that I expected Ralph Wakefield's going to get indicted or
yeah.
anything.
Well, Doug
down the
Orr,
line, right?
well,
Yeah.
to satisfy your curiosity, Doug Orr's still living.
Yeah, no, that's
Yeah,
right.
yeah.
That's why.
Yeah.
If that's not a barrier to criteria for induction, then
Yeah.
And I
I'm okay with it.
agree with you, but this is
Yeah,
not
no,
really naming something. It's a
right.
Again,
Plus, if he moves away,
Name's real big if you
Yeah.
go in there and look.
he
It's
moves-
there.
he
It's
moves away and the city will forget about him.
Okay. So is there consensus? I believe he's going to be here till the end of the year.
That's his
So
that's his
perhaps we could
plan.
for the,
It's
you
to
know,
do with the market and everything,
sooner is better than
for selling his
later.
house and everything.
So-
Yeah. So, and then the other thing I would hope, and I'll bring this up. Well, I won't bring this up. I'll bring this up before I leave office in April. But I would certainly like to hope that the council, the succeeding councils when I'm gone, would consider giving him a proclamation before he does leave town as well from the council.
Absolutely. Erica, could you make a note of that and kind of, again, probably we shouldn't wait till the very end because, sometimes your plans are in the next few
Mhm.
months and then things happen, you sell your house and
Mhm.
Yeah.
perhaps by this summer. Okay. The next agenda item is a request by me to discuss the city's tree canopy and city code. And I meant city tree code. And I guess, and I'm not going to go into great detail right now. We had a long meeting and I know Councilwoman Bravo wants to discuss some things related to our tree ordinance. But obviously we're all very, very proud of our tree canopy and Public Works, Liz, Laz, and your staff, you do an amazing job. And I know you have to work with mature trees and mature trees are like mature people. We get older and we get, nothing lives forever. Even a tree has its lifetime and starts aging, it starts getting disease, it starts getting decay, just like our bones do. And that's the reality of it. None of us want to see any of our trees cut down. But there are also other circumstances when the tree is not healthy and it poses a hazard. But I know there's other circumstances where a homeowner just wants a tree removed and we have certain regulations, I guess, procedures as to when it can be removed, if it's a nuisance tree is my understanding, or if it's causing damage to poses, damage to their house or their pipes or other situations. And I think we've all heard this from residents, the concern when they see a tree go down and they, being torn down, cut down, excuse me. Why is that happening? And it seems like we notice that because it's a tree is something that, especially the mature trees that are just a placemaker. I think what I'd like to suggest is we have a parks board, and I've already spoken with Eric Ritchie, who's the chair, to make sure that this is something that they'd be willing to do, is to pass this on to them and ask them to look at what the mitigation fees are right now, what trees can be removed, what are the situations, why an owner can remove a tree. Because I think that's the major concern. It's not when Public Works, when you've determined our arborist has determined that a tree has to be cut down. And I want to mention that sometimes I know the tree, it's my understanding the tree looks very healthy, but it's dying inside. And if we wait for a storm or even a heavy wind or something, it could topple over because it's basically, it's on its last limbs. So sometimes it appears that the tree is very healthy, but our arborist has identified a mature tree on city property that needs to be cut down. So that was my suggestion. And Laz and Liz, if you could just give us some insight, what your thoughts are. I thought the Parks Board members could look at this, help, work with you to come up with recommendations to us as to what we can do to protect our canopy as much as possible. Encourage residents not to request cutting down of a tree in their swale, just because I guess black olives are nuisance trees and they can request to have those removed because they're nuisance trees. And try to encourage them to keep these trees. They're so vital to our tree canopy. The other thing I wanted to mention too is, I hear from residents sometimes saying, oh, they remove that tree and they replant it, but it's a very small tree. Well, the mature trees that we have out throughout the city are there because at one time somebody thought to the future and planted a small tree. It's like, populations and communities and all, you have to replenish yourself, even though you start with a baby that can't do anything. So by no means should that be a deterrent for anyone to not put in a tree just because it's a small tree. It'll take off. And really, when you plant a new tree, you're doing something, more for future. You're looking at the future. You're giving a gift to future generations, to the future of our community, because one day it will be a beautiful tree. I know I requested with Public Works years and years ago, a oak tree in my swale. We had some black olives, which we still have at the two ends, but I also wanted another tree in the center of the swale. And when they planted, it was so tiny. And for 10 years, after 10 years, that thing just exponentially took off. And now it's a nice tree. It's probably been there 20 years, but I mean, once it starts taking off, they are amazing. The other thing I wanted to mention, and then I'll let you speak, is my understanding is with black olives. A few years ago, we had heard that Coral Gables was doing a treatment because the staining of the black olive trees, I thought it was the leaves, but it's like caterpillars or some kind of insects that they defecate, and that's what causes that staining. And so a few years ago, we had heard that Coral Gables was trying out a trial application, chemical application that killed the caterpillars, and then you wouldn't have the staining, which is the reason that most people want to have a black olive removed, is because of staining on their cars and all. So it's been a few years, and I had asked William to ask you to follow up on it, and if you could tell us, their findings from Coral Gables, because perhaps it's something now that we're ready to consider. So come to the microphone so you're.
That one's really easy to answer. For the black olives.
On the black olives, what they've seen is improvement. It's not gonna go away 100%.
The staining.
So you see improvement in the staining. They right now are doing 2,000 trees within their canopy a year. The cost is about $70,000 that they dedicate to that. So just think of what we have for our canopy to grow every year and what we dedicate to trimming our canopy so that we can keep it healthy, because that helps. The trimming helps to keep it healthy. It's a lot of money. Again, their canopy is just a little bit larger than ours. We don't have a current inventory. So what we looked at was going out to that same company or a couple of other companies. VG has used 1-2 Tree, and they're only looking at maybe 10 or so trees within the city. We are going to reach out to them for hey, what do you think? And then the Davy company, which is the one that's doing Coral Gables, reach out to them as well. They actually just were awarded January 28th on their efforts. Again, it reduces it. It is successful to a certain extent. We'd have to try it out.
You also checked with VG started
Right.
doing that.
The
also,
1-2 Tree.
right?
Correct.
Yeah, the 1-2 Tree.
Yeah, they have 10 that specimens that they're working on.
They did it. They did it recently, so they don't know yet.
No.
They got no. And also, depending on the size of the tree, they will need more than one treatment. Some trees will take 2 to 3 treatments. So that is it more of a cost.
Through the chair,
It breaks down to about $30 a tree, a
20,
treatment.
around $29.50 and change. So
Per treatment?
per treatment per tree.
what is the chemical that they, do you know, Les?
I know the name. I know the name of it. I
But-
don't. Yeah,
Yeah.
it
It's
escapes
here,
me.
But yeah.
It escapes me, but there's 2 different types of applications. One of them is where you actually drill into the trunk of the tree. So when you inject it, and the other one, depending on the type of, there's 2 different types of index bugs
Yeah.
that invade. And the other one is like the granules that you would put around the trunk on the bottom.
So this gets into the sap and stuff, and the
Correct.
caterpillars eat it,
Yeah,
and it
and then
eliminates
it
them that
takes it
way. I
up
guess.
and It keeps that from.
I was thinking, hopefully it wasn't spray, where there's
Yeah, no, there's no spray.
fallout to other things,
Now,
Okay.
no,
Okay.
just like anything, you may lose a couple trees here and there because the tree doesn't take well to that treatment.
Mhm.
So, there is a possibility of having some loss. It's
Thank-
not a lot, but one is one. So
When you reach out to Coral Gables, could you get an idea of how many trees they might have lost, that didn't take, to see what percentage is it, like, 0.5%, or is it 20%? Because that,
Yeah.
and,
they have a presentation. I can have that forwarded.
Okay.
I think see that as well, because it doesn't give you a lot of number detail, but it explains how the process works on the trees.
and perhaps there may be some homeowners, like I'm thinking we have 2 big black olives, that I love for the shade and everything, but they are messy. Some homeowners may want to, if it's possible, just pay through Public Works to request the treatment, and you apply it, and then, charge us, or we pay for it ahead of, if it's something reasonable. You're talking about $30 an application. So
Yeah, I
depending on
don't know
how
where
big the
that
tree,
falls with it being a city tree.
it's city swale.
Right,
But-
so how
but I'm
that
s-
would
Yeah.
fall, because we
Okay.
do ask that if you don't trim
The
your city tree on the swale,
Okay.
although
Okay.
we find that happens, but we ask that not, because it's dangerous.
Right.
It's not.
So when the Parks Board if we have consensus with this, I'd like to pass this to.
Can
the
I
Parks
ask a
Board.
question before we kick that to the Parks Board? If we were to ask you for your opinion of how to strengthen our tree canopy, right? Like a citywide, do you think that the best way to do that would be to strengthen our ordinances from what it currently says? Or do you think it's a matter, it would it would help our tree canopy if we invested more in the resources to enforce the current code. What do you think would, I'm not saying like, I think our tree canopy is beautiful, right? But we want to continue to have it grow and flourish. Do you think that, which of those two do you think would help it? Do you think it's a problem, or do you think it would be helped if we strengthen our current code? Because we're talking about having the Parks Board look at the code.
Well, just give us recommendations,
But
working with you.
But I'd love to know their opinion. Do you think that the code should be strengthened, or do you think that we just need more resources behind enforcing the code that's already in place?
It needs to be redefined, is our agreement. We've
Okay.
discussed it at length.
Yeah.
Only because of the number of requests. And I think that that's something that we kind of forget. As we were compiling the list of what was requested from us, I went back to about 2014. And I discussed that with William and Tammy also at length, to where the requests that we were getting 10 years ago are not the same requests that we've been getting 5 years ago.
Mhm.
So it's grown. Our population's grown. Our homeowners, what they would like. I think we spoke about that during budget time. The dynamic of our population is very different than what it was 10 years ago to what it is 5 years ago. The homes are different. You have different type of landscaping. You have different type of, you have driveways. And we freak out. Everybody's putting in a driveway and we're trying to figure out how that happens. So that affects, if I just spent thousands of dollars on a driveway or the improvement of the front of my home, and now I have a black olive that looks ugly, I want to remove it. And it is in our ordinance where you can remove it. You pay mitigation. It is at a 50% because it's considered a nuisance tree. So as a homeowner, even if it's on the city swale, it can be done. As the city, we do have a limit of how many we can bring down. However,
Can I ask a question? If because I know that in the media they've talked about, they've given certain examples. Like if you have an avocado tree in your backyard, it's your backyard, and then now you get a pool. That avocado tree is going to become a nuisance tree by virtue of the fact that you just built a pool.
it's not unprotected. So you're going to have your two separate. You've got your protected and you got your unprotected.
Right.
So in our ordinance, it does specify protected and unprotected.
Right.
And it does have the list of the trees that are included in that list. However, again, in our opinion, it needs to be brought, it needs to be rewritten, it needs to be redefined from beginning to end. I'm not saying that we would not participate in it, but we do need folks that are experts in that to be able to say, we're not certified arborists. We do have a contractor that does that for us. And we've learned a lot from hearing his opinion. He's taught us a lot about, what we're looking at so that we can speak to it, because he's not here every day, or the company's not here every day to answer those questions, but we're able to answer those questions whenever the arborist is in town, which we try and do it quarterly. We don't have the luxury to have somebody in-house right now. That takes a degree, believe it or not, today. So that would be dedication. Want to go back to school?
Mayor,
Your guy.
I wonder if it's worth it to either provide the guidance to the Parks Board to look at this, or maybe perhaps have like staff, the city attorney, like kind of come up with, like what we do with other, what are other municipalities doing with their code, and kind of look at it. Either have the city attorney provide the Parks Board with that so that they could have guidance, because otherwise I feel like it.
That's available. Actually, I did that research.
Right.
when we first.
Either we do it, if we're going to let them do it, I feel like we should give them the tools to be able to
And the
make
research is
informed recommendations.
I think they need to work, but we have these advisory boards of residents who this is their passion. And for instance, with the Parks Board, their passion is trees and, and making our city green and beautiful. So I think it's a good project for us to ask for their input, their recommendations, and basically what they'll do is come up with a plan, working with you, obviously, and, you know, of finding out what we have right now, what you think are current issues. Keeping in mind that what we'd like to do, I think we all residents in Miami Springs would like to see a very strong, healthy canopy. Even the people who don't want a tree by their house because it's staining their driveway, you know, they would like to see a healthy canopy everywhere else. You know, the reality is just not in front of and how do we convince them that, or removing when a tree is removed because it's a nuisance tree, to plant something else that's not messy, because in 10 years, you're going to start reaping the benefits, you know, that kind of awareness but I will say, you made the comment about, you know, things have changed, buildings and all this. You know, there was a time not that long ago where everyone had an asphalt driveway and we were all perfectly happy with the asphalt driveway. And, you know, what stuck out was somebody had really redone their driveway 10 years ago. Now it's like what sticks out is, you know, your asphalt driveway that needs repair. Hey, don't you know, so even that, we have an asphalt driveway, you know, our black olive stains the driveway. It's a black driveway, you know, difference does it make, but people, you know, driveways have become part of the house now. You know, it used to be the house and then the driveway just happened to be there. And the reality is that, that's now considered a feature of the house. So some homeowners are going to want to try to remove it. And I think the challenge to us is to find a way to get them to keep the tree. And my understanding too, and William, I think you told me this one time a while back when we had gotten some complaint that if someone has a mature, healthy swale tree, not a nuisance tree, but a mature, healthy swale tree, and they request a permit for a new driveway, that they have to sign. Part of the permit is that they understand that the driveway may damage, the tree may damage the driveway. And you can't then say, I want the tree removed because, you know, the tree was there first. In those cases, the tree's there first, which I think is excellent. You know, it's like, you want to put it in the driveway? Okay, but this tree's staying.
And Laz has spoken when we go out there to go check out these permits. That's kind of our way of saying, we understand you just bought this home, but this tree has been here longer. So has the driveway. We understand that it's lifting, but it's as a result of the tree. Probably the prior owner, you know, signed off when they put in that asphalt. So do we have a record of it? Can we find it? That's the difficult part. So I think as we move forward and our record keeping and, you know, what we have as far as technology to help us with that.
That'll
Florida
help to
Parks
have
and
that.
Parkways,
Yes.
I think would be the first place to go because those resources are there. I mean, I have a pile like this on my desk. I printed everybody that is not Miami-Dade County. And you have the gamut. You have from Miami Beach that says not happening. It's going to cost you $10,000 if you want to take down, you know,
And that may be, we
one
may
tree.
need to increase the mitigation fee, you know, for if it's just for, you know, I just don't like the tree because it's leafy. Obviously it's causing damage and stuff, but those are all things that I think
they're items
with
that
the
need to
Parks
be
Board working with
properly
you,
defined.
you could bring recommendations to us. Okay.
I think the way to proceed is a combination of what the mayor originally brought up and what Councilman Fahed also added to it. It's kind of a hybrid of the both, would be to provide the information and the research that has been done by staff and provide that information to Parks and Parkways and have them meet on it and read it all first, of course, and then meet on it and get back to us with the recommendations. That would be my thought.
And I think the mayor said it best. Like if you guys are working with him, then I'm comfortable with that because apparently obviously you guys know, right? You have that information. So I don't mind having them take that on and with their guidance, I'm sure they'll come up with some good recommendations.
They've done it in the past. I sent you the reports from, I believe in 2017, where the council, and they had some workshops on it and came up with some recommendations to council. So they're familiar with Eric Ritchie is very well versed on trees. So I think that would be the logical choice.
Yep.
Okay. So is there a consensus that will forward and ask them to work with you, or you work with them and come up with recommendations for the city of how ultimately the goal is to, you know, keep our tree canopy, keep increasing it and figure out a way to, you know, to reduce instances of people wanting to cut down trees unnecessarily. And I know sometimes that's a hard call. I know I've gotten, usually when you've said no, I get the call.
Yeah.
And I've been to several, William, of really mad residents who have been
Yeah.
told by Public Works, this tree can't come down on your swale for a variety. Sometimes it's a protected tree. Sometimes it's you put in the driveway now and this tree was here and all these. And some residents get really, really irate. They want that tree cut and and, we stand our ground. There's no, if the tree's not a nuisance tree, if it's not, causing damage to the house or something, it stays. And I don't think residents realize that.
Right.
That, I think the city has been pretty firm on the situation, on the instances where, there's no reason to cut down this tree.
Yeah, the only, I think, and it's not a loophole, it's just there. I mean, power lines.
Yeah.
Can't change that.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you so much, Les and Liz, you
Wait,
guys.
I'm not
Oh, I'm
done.
sorry. We're going to your account item next.
Yeah. And
But you want to
I
talk about this one? Okay, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Thank you for being here. So I'm really happy to hear a lot of the things that I just heard right now. And the bells went off for me when you agreed that our ordinance does need an update. And I've done a lot of work on this. I'm very passionate about it. And it might seem that I'm coming off a little bit rough or not trusting. And it's not that. I'm just trying to help you guys because I know you guys do have a lot of things going on. So if I can lend a helping hand, I mean, I did my research. I want to put a platform for you guys so you're able to put your foot down and you have some resource to go to so you don't get these hiccups and like, oh, and this, I'm trying to get the subjective opinions out of your operations of work so you can go back and say, it says this. It's very open right now. We have Miami Springs at 11 pages, just to give you an idea. We have Coral Gables at 19 pages. And then Heidi, I'm very impressed with Miami Lakes. Look at this. They have a beautiful tree canopy. I found a lot of helpful resources. My toes are a little scratchy. And I agree with you. Maintenance costs money. And for us to be able to cover those costs, we need to charge hard for mitigation. It's not like, oh, well, let me see. And I'm going to divide this by this. And it depends what Lazaro says. You have a lot of pressure on you. On the current ordinance right now, you're not in a good spot. I'm going to be honest. No, you're not in a good spot. But the reason being is because you don't have the tool to support why you're saying it's A and not B. So, yeah, definitely some update. Look, we talked about, for example, the driveway. Well, yeah, the trees in the way, there's certain things and plans there's like, I think it's in Miami Lakes and Coral Gables where you have to provide 3 plans of a driveway. Should you not be able to remove that tree? So it's not going to be, and I think that because it seems like a free for all to the vision of the public, they're trying to bend it every way possible to get that tree down. And I'm not going to take away private property rights. I'm talking about swale. And on our ordinance, it says a lot where the city has the option to exercise that force or not. So what I want to do is definitely, I mean, if I could be of help with the parks, I would like to. This is something like,
it'd be great if you went.
I
to
would
the
love
meetings
to.
and help them, lead them.
I would
in
love
the
to. I've done
direction.
so much work from even tree variances that would fall into the driveway. Relocation standards, we have removal, but we don't have standards. There's just so much. And I know the meeting you sent me where the last ordinance was updated, they provided so much, including certain tablets that I saw here. I'm like, they are doing what we're asking them to do. So I think we're off to a good start. And I just want you to feel confident when you're applying these ordinances, not just like, oh, and just make it easier. We have like tables here. We have, I mean, why reinvent the wheel? Here it is, Miami Lakes, right here. They even have a 15-year black olive tree removal. I think you were talking about that.
It's a program, yeah, that they
Super
have.
cool.
And they were first, when it was initially developed, they didn't start with oaks. They just planted all black olives throughout the entire city.
No, I think it was for removal. Oh, you're talking about back then.
When Miami Lakes first started.
Yeah.
tree of choice back then were black
Was
olives,
black
just
olives.
like a lot of the other municipalities. So we're all kind of going back to what you said, Mayor. Now in the future, suffering what happened in the past. And that's kind of what we're trying to avoid. One of the things that we're always looking at is there storm drains around, is their sidewalk, is, you know, the requests, something that, hey, can we move it 5 more feet? Can we do this instead of this? So there's a lot of discussion with the residents that we do that, you know,
Yeah.
maybe a lot of people don't hear, but you know, we do.
No, I know you're out there. You're
Our
on
first thing,
back and forth.
our
with
first thing is making the resident happy, but we also want to keep our canopy. That's for us, that's it.
No, and then
Last call we want is that there's a tree that was removed. We know when the chainsaw goes off, it's like, oh, the call's coming. So there has to be a really valid reason for that to be approved.
no, when there's a structured cost and a fee, you're gonna see by default, they're gonna think it through. And they're gonna say, let me just, you know, see what I can do. Or if not, but it can't just be like, oh, I'm gonna just say it's gonna, I don't know, cualquier invento. I'm just giving out an example. But as far now touching base on the arborists, we have I saw that they have inspections, specifications, project management. As part of the inspection report, do you think it's I don't know if it falls in here, maybe it's a by default, I'm not sure. Is there a way that they can provide some images of that tree that is sick before going down? Because I know that they have here for project management, and I don't know if that has to do with you have the
We
images.
take pictures of the trees before, when the permits come in. That's another job that we do besides handling the permit, besides submitting it to the arborist. And when the arborist makes the recommendation, and he can speak to it better, we review it. Because the arborist is familiar with our ordinance. If not, he wouldn't be working here. That he is following our ordinance to the letter. We have the option to say, we don't agree with, let's say, the mitigation that you're saying, because we'll negotiate with the resident, or we'll look and say, this isn't something that needs to go down. Again, being clearly defined, redefining the code, working on that, to your point, I think is what we need to do in order to be able to substantiate our decisions.
Exactly. Okay.
And I think
But-
we're all in
but-
agreement with that, that we
but
want to
the
give you
mitigation
firm
fee
background for
in
that.
the ordinance.
In the ordinance.
Oh, yeah,
everything will be
mitigation
there.
fee has to be.
I'm
clearly
there.
Right now, our ordinance
Not
is
in-
quiet. It's up
Not
to
in there.
the
It's up to-
arborist to determine the mitigation.
Or Lazaro.
Bravo says, I still,
cool.
they'll create,
Right.
I mean, just like she said, anything to take the tree down. I mean,
Mhm.
They'll just, if we go left, they'll try to go right. If we go right, they try to go through the center. And it's just a back and forth. So.
Yeah.
It's super
I can
unproductive for you
speak
guys.
to someone who receives numerous calls from the same, resident who is bound, and you've said no, and they're gonna sue me, and they're gonna, whatever, and I just go.
Oh, wait,
it
and we
doesn't
can add
fall
a
into the
whole
thing, so.
harvest to those tree planting ones too. We'll get together.
So I think that's excellent. And then Councilwoman, if you
Thank you.
could
I am.
attend those meetings and kind of guide them, along the thing. I think we're all in
Honored.
agreement that we want to, like Councilwoman Bravo said, is give you really firm standing as to your decisions and, and why they're made, and that we're pretty consistent with them.
Erica,
where I'm
you'll
gonna go
keep
with that,
us
right?
in how we
With-
meet and
could
how
you-
we do.
For the
Okay.
next Parks meeting, and put that on their agenda, please. I know I spoke with Eric, but you'll need to have it on the agenda. Okay, wonderful.
Yay.
Any other questions for Laz and Liz? Are you gonna have questions for him with your next item?
But
No,
No, that's it.
I just
We're-
went into it.
Oh, you wanted
That's
to
it.
include
You
that
opened,
in?
I closed, we're.
Oh, okay, I thought,
Yeah.
okay, all right, because I have, George Santine.
He had to
Left.
leave.
Okay, he had wanted to speak on this, your agenda item, so okay, I just want to make sure we've covered all bases.
If you could just let him know to go to that meeting.
For the parks.
Yes.
Okay,
F.
F is a reminder to everyone, to our residents, and our business owners that, this Thursday, February 16th, we're having, a
you.
town hall.
Thank you, Liz.
Yes,
Yes.
thank you, Liz and Liz. we're having a town hall workshop meeting at the senior center at the Adult Community Center. It's to review the recommendations in the final report from the Business and Economic Development Task Force that met for a year and then submitted a final report to us in December.
Yep.
This is an opportunity. This will be a workshop. I mean, we're not going to vote during workshops. You don't vote on things, but we get consensus, agree to things, discuss things. So it'll be an opportunity for what's really important is for residents to hear what the recommendations are and provide their input, because this is they made a lot of recommendations, and it's their recommendations apply to the future of our city, you know, having a vision of what we need to improve in our city for our businesses, our resident, not just for the businesses, new businesses to bring into the city, but existing businesses to thrive, but also to provide the kinds of businesses that our residents enjoy and, you know, can do their shopping and their restaurants, dining and everything here in the city if they choose to, that there's a lot of opportunities for that. So we really strongly encourage all the residents to attend this meeting, and it's at 6 p.m. Anyone want to add anything to that meeting?
No.
Okay.
Oh, yes, just
Yes.
remember to bring your reports to the meeting.
Oh, yes. Yes. Good idea. Okay, so let's go to reports by our city attorney.
No reports this evening, Mayor.
Okay, city manager.
Just wanted to ask you to keep Commissioner Rebecca Sosa, in your prayers. She's undergoing through some health issues right now. And so I texted her today, and she thanked me for the thoughts, and just keep her in your prayers. And other than that, happy Valentine's to everyone.
That's it.
Tomorrow,
yeah.
Okay, we'll
I mean,
start
I-
with.
I just have one event.
Tammy, go ahead.
I had two, but the town hall meeting was the first one, but the second one is we're having our community shred day. Again, this is the event where every homeowner or business can shred up to 4 boxes free of charge. And it's going to be held on Tuesday, February 21st from 4 to 7 at the community center.
Thank you, Tammy. Okay, Councilman.
I don't have anything except, just quickly talking about the trees. I think if everybody thinks about why they moved to the Springs and what they fell in love with, I think that's one of the foremost things that comes to anybody's mind.
Yeah.
And people should keep that in mind. You know, you moved here because you loved the trees, you loved the area, and that's what makes the area beautiful. With that, good night, and may the good news be yours.
Ralph Rennick.
Yeah, no, I have nothing. Just thank you for everyone. I thought it was a productive council meeting. Thank you.
Councilwoman Bravo.
No, just a happy Valentine's to everybody at home listening. I send you lots of love, and thank you for a productive meeting. That's it.
Councilman Best for last.
Just echo what Councilman Fahed said. Very, very, very productive meeting tonight.
Okay, great. And all I have to wanted to say is that this past week we had was our city manager's birthday, and it was a milestone birthday that he celebrated. I won't say how much, but many years, but it was a milestone birthday. So I want to wish him a very happy birthday.
Thank you, Mayor.
From me and the
Appreciate it.
council. You're an exceptional city manager, and it's a pleasure to work with you.
Thank you.
So with that said, this meeting is adjourned.
Thank you, Mayor.
Mayor, nice job.
Good meeting, Mayor.
Thank you, buddy. Good work. Mikey didn't even stay. You know, it was a long one. Mikey doesn't stay to the end.
Yes.
Thank you. Do you know when they're gonna make it? Because I haven't seen anything and I only need one.
March, I believe. 14th of March. I have to check with March.
There's no.